Chapter 8:17. Will it work or not? Although it's a bit hasty, it's also worth looking forward to. I love to see a father and son killing each other. On the desolate island, Akiji looked at the deep stars in the sky while lying on a clean and smooth rock. The marines around him were like him, casually finding a place to sleep. When Dustless used Den Den Mushi to bewitch Squard, Akiji was listening next to him. It doesn't matter if it succeeds or not. It doesn't matter anyway, just treat it as after-dinner entertainment. Compared to Akiji, Dustless was more casual. After learning the truth, if he was lucky, Squard might be able to hurt Whitebeard. If he was unlucky, he would definitely be captured on the spot. In short, whether it succeeds or not, it won't take Whitebeard's life. As time passed, the sky was getting darker and darker. The beautiful night sky was particularly quiet, and the biting cold wind rarely stopped. It was almost late at night, and only Whitebeard was sitting alone on the deck drinking. Pirates were rude by nature, and they didn't know how to be gentle and elegant, so they simply picked up the wine jar and poured it into their mouths. They were very happy. Squard walked close to Whitebeard with heavy steps, looking at the old man in the wind. His heart was complicated. Oyaji. Remembering what Dustless had mentioned before, Squard summoned up the courage to say it. He looked at Whitebeard with eyes full of firmness and trust. He didn't believe that Whitebeard would lie to them. It turned out to be you, Squard. Whitebeard's old eyes were clear, and he once again restored his former wisdom and kindness, and said in a rather kind tone, "You have been with the Whitebeard pirates for some time, probably for decades." His eyes gradually became distant, and he recalled the good times of the past. Whitebeard's tone was particularly old, and now he suddenly looked back. He was already 50 years old. Yes, Squard's throat choked, and the words that were about to come out of his mouth were stuffed back again. Suddenly, Dustless's figure and his words flashed in his mind, and his hesitation turned into determination. "You came to me in the middle of the night. You should have something to say, Squard. We are father and son. If you have something to say, just say it. There is no need to hide it." Whitebeard pretended to be unhappy, but his words revealed his friendliness. Hearing this, Squard nodded and said in a deep voice, "Why is Oyaji so obsessed with Ace? He treats him even better than Marco and Jozu." After that, Squard stared at Whitebeard with his burning eyes. "Ace is a little different from others." A look of surprise flashed across Whitebeard's face. He did not expect Squard to ask this question, so he said unnaturally. He quietly looked at Squard and instinctively felt that something was wrong. "Why do you ask this question? Did you hear any bad news? Is there someone behind the scenes?" Squard. Throughout his life, Whitebeard had not only trained his absolute strength, but he had also trained his unique wisdom. His pair of shrewd eyes rarely made mistakes in judging people. Squard hesitated for a moment, and after a moment of contemplation, he remembered Whitebeard's trust in him, and took out the golden Den Den Mushi that he used to contact Dustless. "This is the Den Den Mushi of the Marine Admiral named Royce South. It inexplicably appeared in my cabin, and my men happened to meet it and sent it over." Without the slightest concealment, Squard answered truthfully. "It coincides with Akagami's guess. I didn't expect it to be him." Taking the golden Den Den Mushi from Squard, the doubts in Whitebeard's eyes turned into understanding, and then he looked directly at Squard. His wise eyes were full of reason. "What did he say to you?" "It should be about Ace. He instigated us father and son to kill each other." "Don't believe him. It's that man's inferior strategy." Whitebeard's face was full of sarcasm. Squard naturally wouldn't blindly believe what Dustless said. He glanced at Whitebeard and whispered, "He said that Ace is the son of One Piece Roger, and his father is going to sacrifice the lives of all the people on the ship to save Ace." When mentioning Roger, Squard's voice was abnormally heavy, and his eyes were full of killing intent. "I knew it. He will definitely instigate the relationship between us father and son." Whitebeard's face flashed with a strange color, and he avoided the main point and talked about the relationship between Ace and Roger directly. Silence was tantamount to admission, and it was equivalent to Whitebeard tacitly admitting the relationship between Ace and Roger. "Squard, I know the hatred between you and Roger, but the past is like the wind. I hope you and Ace can resolve the hatred." Whitebeard sincerely advised Scored as he scrutinized his face. Perhaps it was because of a moment of carelessness or because he trusted Scored too much. Whitebeard did not notice the scarlet demonic light in Scored's eyes. His eyes were blood red, and he felt like he had turned into a hellish Shura. His breathing was abnormally heavy, and the emotion of revenge spread and filled the nerves in Scored's mind. Scored picked up the big sword in his hand and jumped up, and he directly slashed at Whitebeard's head. This sudden state happened too fast, and everything happened in a flash. When Whitebeard realized it, it was already too late, and the sharp sword full of sawtooth touched his chest. Chapter 8:18. Recommend this book to everyone. Naruto's Almighty Master. It's a good book. Whitebeard didn't expect that his son, who had respected him for many years, would attack him like a blood enemy, and his means were extremely ruthless and cold. He directly stabbed his heart in his chest. He wanted to kill Whitebeard with one blow, and it could also be seen how deep Scored's hatred for Whitebeard was. Clang clang clang. The crisp roar fell, and it was different from the flesh being pierced and cut into pieces. This was similar to the sound of steel collision, and the effect was as magical as the elixir. It went deep into Scored's soul, and pulled him back to his thoughts. The blood in his eyes also converged. Looking at the tip of the sword inserted into Whitebeard's chest, Scored didn't react. He rubbed his eyes and thought it was an illusion caused by high tension. Such a short distance, and he can still resist with armament hockey. Scored's face was ugly. He gambled on a fatal blow, but it didn't hurt or itch for Whitebeard. Looking up, Whitebeard's face didn't change, and there was no reaction at all. It was an invisible mockery of his weakness. Scored. I know you are unwilling. It is undeniable that I usually deal with some things, and I do favor Ace, but I treat you as my sons, and there is no distinction between high and low. The big sword in Whitebeard's hand danced quickly. Under the moonlight, it was particularly sharp, and it could cut iron like mud. Scored closed his eyes and quietly waited for disappointment to come. He didn't feel regret. He hated One Piece. Now that Fire Fist Ace was the son of his enemy, Scored naturally hated him too. After waiting for a long time, his head didn't move. He opened his eyes and looked at Whitebeard. Looking down at Scored with his broad body, Whitebeard restrained his killing intent. Finally, the broadsword in his hand fell. This son had been with him for decades. Whitebeard couldn't kill him today even if he wanted to assassinate him. In the final analysis, it was all Dustless's instigation. Royce South. The hatred between us has deepened, Whitebeard said hoarsely, and the big sword in his hand was more dazzling. The cold air around it was more penetrating, and people didn't dare to look directly at it. Plop. Looking at Whitebeard's posture, Scored couldn't bear it and fell to the ground. His forehead was oozing with cold sweat. Whitebeard took a step forward. Scored thought that he would completely kill him, but unexpectedly, Whitebeard stretched out his big warm hand. 3 days later in the afternoon, the chaotic world regained its tranquility, and the situation was clear. Whitebeard returned to the island where he was originally stationed, and Big Mam slipped away in advance, leaving only the corpses on the ground. The entire Whitebeard pirates were ruined by Big Mam. There were even many people who were brutally dismembered before their corpses could even be found. The furious Whitebeard immediately led the entire pirate regiment to fight with Big's mom. Compared with her reckless self a few years ago, Big's mom is undoubtedly much smarter now. She knows that Whitebeard is old, and there is no need to fight with her to the death, so she retreats. The Whitebeard pirates didn't get much advantage. Marlin's marine headquarters. That bastard Gecko Moria really can't be trusted, or else we'll suffer heavy losses. In the fleet admiral's office, Sengoku slammed the table angrily, and a crack visible to the naked eye appeared. He yelled, "That bastard's words are tantamount to fart out of thin air. You can't believe him at all." Gecko Moria once promised to deal with Whitebeard, but in the end, he didn't even see a ghost. The only Shichibukai who really came were Blackbeard and Bartholomew. This time, I almost fell into Whitebeard's trap. Thinking of Whitebeard, Sengoku said fortunately, if it wasn't for Dustless to see through his strategy and secretly instigate Scored, and finally instigate the war between Big's mom and Whitebeard, I'm afraid the Marine would be doomed. What should we do with Gecko Moria? Akainu asked hoarsely, with a blazing killing intent in his voice. People who don't have a firm stance should be eradicated early. They will only use the rights given to them by the Marine. Expecting him to help the Marine is a dream. Gecko Moria always wanted revenge. More than 10 years ago, the New World's Moria pirates fought against 100 Beast Kaido, but they were hit hard by the latter's overwhelming strength. Since then, they have been unable to recover and have been doing nothing for more than 10 years. Until today, Gecko Moria has not risen. Even if you want to take back the title of Shichibukai, there is no need to take it now. When we execute Ace, we can force him to participate. It's not too late to kill him after that. This is also a waste. Dustless said with a distant look. Although Gecko Moria's strength is average, in the future war, it is still very useful to deal with the Whitebeard pirates. It's not too late to kill him. Let that waste live for a while. Akainu's eyes flashed away, and then he sat on the sofa with his eyes closed. Obviously, he acquiesced to Dustless's approach. Even if they destroy Gecko Moria, it's time to squeeze his value. Sengoku and others also have the same view. For pirates like Gecko Moria, they must not be soft-hearted. Once he has no value, what awaits him will be death or forever being locked in a place like Impel Down. Who let Gecko Moria go against them? In Sengoku's view, this is his own cocoon and he can't blame others. Chapter 819. Sengoku and others also have the same view. For pirates like Gecko Moria, they must not be soft-hearted. Once he has no use value, what awaits him will be death or forever being locked in a place like Impel Down. Who let Gecko Moria go against them? In Sengoku's view, this is his own fault and he can't blame others. But then again, Whitebeard chose to let go of Squard. Akiji was quite surprised. A person who wanted to end his life, Whitebeard can still smile and forget about it. This courage is indeed worthy of respect. His eyes subconsciously looked at Sengoku. These two men are from the same era, but their temperaments are completely opposite. Compared with the King of the Sea Whitebeard, Sengoku is too narrow-minded and usually likes to talk nonsense. Well, he's just putting on a show. No wonder that man's pirates decline so fast. He, as a captain, has to take great responsibility first. Fleet Admiral Sengoku said righteously. His face was not red and he was not panting. Dustless and others rolled their eyes, but this is also an undeniable fact. The Whitebeard pirates are indeed in danger now. This time, Big's mom dared to take the risk of a raid to explain everything. Whitebeard is now just a critically ill tiger. Over the years, the sea has been relatively quiet, and Whitebeard has also lived in seclusion. Even many pirates have forgotten about him. It's no wonder that Marine started with this critically ill tiger. What about Garp? His eyes quietly spread. Sengoku saw Garp disappear and asked with some doubts. He received 2 apprentices a while ago. One is called Corby, and the other is called Belumebo. Recently, it seems that he has been training them both. Looking out of the window on the spacious playground, the lonely Garp came into view, and his 2 new apprentices. This time, the reason why Fire Fist Ace was exposed in Impel Down was because of Garp. Whether it was intentional or not, he couldn't get away with it. His eyes turned back and fell on Sengoku's head again. He saw that his face was full of helplessness. Obviously, Sengoku was also caught in the same difficult choice as Whitebeard. The affairs of the world are unpredictable. That old man can be considered as a tragedy. Dustless sighed as he lamented the fickle affairs of the world. Garp's experience really makes people feel the twists and turns of fate. 2 grandsons and 1 son have stepped on the opposite side of him. Especially Ace is about to be publicly executed by the Marine. Garp's heart is very uncomfortable, but he is a Marine, so he can only choose to stare. On the other hand, Garp stood firmly on this side. He was destined to treat Fire Fist Ace coldly. How comical! Dustless sighed as he looked at Garp's aged figure on the training field. Comical? None of them seemed to understand what Dustless was talking about. They were all confused, but they could all see the doubt in each other's eyes. They looked at Dustless with confused eyes. Everyone has their own position, and their belief has never changed. However, in my opinion, this is just a form of self-restraint. How can a creature like a human be restrained by one's position? What should be done, and do as one pleases. Otherwise, one would become like Garp. Dustless whispered to himself in his heart. Looking at Garp on the field below, he couldn't help but shake his head. Garp's feelings in his heart were naturally to save Ace from prison, but he was restrained by the ridiculous thing of his position. If he took action in the war of the future generations, maybe Fire Fist Ace would have escaped from prison. There is no need to be bound by his position. He can do things according to his own heart. He can judge a thing according to his own emotions. After a while, he silently retracted his gaze. Dustless once again restored his previous calm. Ace's life and death, as well as Garp's current sentimentality, have nothing to do with him. For the Marine and even for this world, Dustless is just an outsider. There is no need to worry about these trivial things. The relationship between Sengoku and Garp is known to the world. He is not in a hurry, so Dustless doesn't need to be in a hurry. Within the mysterious ocean, everything within a radius of a few dozen kilometers was dark and gloomy. Dark clouds were rolling, and darkness was the only main color in this ocean that was forbidden from living creatures. In the vast sea, the new battleship of the Straw Hat Pirates, thousands of sunshine, like a meteor, passed through layers of stormy waves and officially invaded the core area of the Devil's Sea. Binks Wine. The melodious melody was carried by the chilly wind and spread across the dead silent ocean. The melody that came through the chilly wind was like a requiem written by the Grim Reaper, causing people to shiver all over. This dark ocean was the most dangerous place for humans, the heaven of the Grim Reaper. Nami, did we go to the wrong place? Did we invade hell? Usopp, who was born timid, trembled. This strange sea was isolated from the world. He had never even heard of it. It was as if it had been erased from human history. I just heard someone singing. Those who live in this strange sea are ghosts. They can even sing. It must be the Admiral that we offended. He used witchcraft to summon ghosts. That guy is really despicable, Usopp said with a serious expression. Sometimes he would gnash his teeth in anger. Wu Chen was implicated even though he was lying down. Chapter 820. Everyone's eyes were focused on Usopp. At this moment, he was trembling, and his eyes flashed with panic. By the way, why did the Marines put the blame on us for the destruction of Enies Lobby? Isn't it a bit too stupid for them to just sit there and do nothing? The Marines are obviously trying to make us the scapegoat. Frankie, who joined the Straw Hat Pirates a few days ago, said. His tone was full of resentment. What worried him the most was that Pluton's blueprint was taken away. At first it was Spandam, then he was killed by Dustless. It was self-evident who got the blueprint. Thinking about it, Frankie felt uncomfortable. He felt like all the machinery in his body was short-circuited. If it's just framing, then it's fine. The Marines have done a lot of this kind of thing. Sanji quietly leaned against the mast of the sail, and immediately lit a cigarette. After blowing a smoke ring, he said, I'm afraid we will become the focus of the world in the future. It's inevitable that people will be jealous of us. Being narrow-minded, jealous, greedy, and wanting to stand out, this is the nature of a pirate. The more famous a pirate is, the more they want to hunt down pirates with high bounties. Now that the Straw Hat Pirates have risen in fame, they will inevitably face attacks from all sides. Conquering Enies Lobby, which has been safe for 800 years, this kind of world-shaking event is enough to make all the pirates who want to be famous rush to it. Fame is good and bad. While enjoying the admiration of the world, it is bound to attract attention from all sides and various attacks. A few days ago, it was announced in the newspaper that all the CP9 members were killed. The only survivor was Khalifa. She was the only one who wasn't safe. I heard that she just fainted, and when she woke up, she pushed all the blame on us. That hateful woman. Nami gritted her teeth and said with a regretful expression. She seemed to hate that she didn't kill Khalifa at that time. Grrrr. The smell of barbecue drifted into everyone's nostrils. Everyone looked for the source of the smell, and saw Luffy eating meat. Eat meat, eat meat. There's no need to worry about this kind of thing. Luffy wolfed down the fragrant barbecued meat. Compared to the crew members who had serious expressions, Luffy, as the captain, was exceptionally calm. He ate the meat calmly, attracting a lot of rolling eyes. Luffy. Everyone exchanged glances with each other. Soon after, they let out a long sigh. They had an extremely speechless and troubled expression on their faces. Zoro saw it quite thoroughly, and he began to pick up the barbecue and wine and indulge in it. This appearance made Sanji's anger index suddenly rise. Hey, green algae head, Luffy's nerves are nothing, but why are you acting like this? Sanji stared at Zoro with dissatisfaction and said. Hearing this, Zoro opened his closed eyes and looked at Sanji, then continued to drink by himself. We've completely fallen into a passive position. It's useless to think and worry blindly here. Instead of saying these useless things, why don't we look at the long term and continue to become stronger? This is the only right path. Zoro's words made everyone silent, including Sanji. It was useless to scratch their heads because they had no strategy to fight back. The Marines pushed all the blame on them, and they could only swallow their anger. It was impossible to resist. They had no right to speak and no strength. In simpler words, in the end, it was because they were too weak that the Marines could ignore their feelings and push all the blame on the Straw Hat Pirates. But who killed that group of CP9? Usopp brought the topic back to the CP9's head. Thinking of the tragic deaths of several people, his brows flashed with gloom. These words made everyone stunned, including Luffy, who was the reincarnation of a hungry ghost. He stopped what he was doing and became silent. Dustless's figure appeared in his mind, and Sanji's cold sweat flowed as he speculated. That guy is an admiral of the Marine, he shouldn't kill his own people. The CP9 didn't die because of the Demon Slayer order. At that time, there was no one in Enies lobby who had the strength to kill all the CP9 members. Zoro opened his eyes, and his cold eyes gradually faded. The boiling fighting spirit in his heart was instantly extinguished. Dustless's overwhelming strength that could destroy everything was still vivid in his mind. At present, he really couldn't raise the will to resist. If he encountered the CP9, he could fight back and still have a chance to win. But if he encountered an unprecedented admiral like Dustless, he would only be killed on the spot. He wouldn't even be able to make a ripple, he would be suppressed on the spot. It's better if we expose him. If he dares to kill his own people, the Marines will definitely expel him and even kill him. Usopp said with bright eyes. Everyone nodded with admiration. This is indeed a good plan. In addition to Dustless, there are 3 other admirals in the Marine. This kind of thing will only be a joke if it gets out. Robin, who was silent from beginning to end, suddenly said. We are pirates, but he is an admiral, and there is no evidence yet. Even if there is evidence, will the Marines listen to pirates and catch an admiral? Robin couldn't help but feel speechless. The thoughts of these people are too naive. She is Wu Chen's secret chess. Naturally, she knows how huge Wu Chen's power is. Even if one day the truth is revealed to the world, Wu Chen's power all over the world will make the Marine afraid to shoot the rat for fear of breaking the vases. Chapter 8:21. Robin couldn't help but feel speechless. These people's thoughts were too naive. She was Wu Chen's hidden chess piece. Naturally, she knew how huge Wu Chen's power was. Even if one day the truth was revealed to the world, Wu Chen's power spread all over the world would make the Navy afraid to shoot the rat for fear of breaking the vases. That's right. After a long while, Usopp touched his head and smiled awkwardly. He couldn't help but feel that his stupid behavior was ridiculous. Why would the Marines listen to them and capture Dustless, who is a Marine admiral? It's simply a daydream. It really won't work. Zoro said deeply. He couldn't help but worry about the IQ of the Straw Hat Pirates. He looked around and suddenly realized that their IQ was not trustworthy. What's that look in your eyes? Green algae head. Sanji's eyes happened to confront Zoro, and his face changed greatly. Zoro's eyes revealed the meaning of looking at him, as if he was an idiot. It means what you think it means, Zoro admitted. Hearing this, Sanji's face changed greatly. He rolled up his sleeves and was about to teach Zoro a lesson when an elegant song with vicissitudes of life came from afar. Binks's Wine. This sudden inexplicable song made everyone stunned, including Zoro. He thought that the strange song was an illusion of overwork, but now it seems that it was real. Then there was a scream like a pig being slaughtered. Nami, you unqualified navigator, how dare you bring us to hell? Usopp and Choba cried out in shock. Their voices were like metal, as if they had been greatly stimulated. Their voices were filled with endless despair and fear. Binks's whine. The song was getting closer and closer. At this moment, a gust of wind came and washed away the fog in the air. A huge shadow appeared in front of everyone. Even because the mysterious object was too huge, it filled the entire eyeball. What a big ship! Even with Zoro and Robin's determination, they were stunned to see such an exaggerated ship. They immediately looked up and saw a skeleton standing there, elegantly holding a steaming coffee in his hand. Seeing this, Usopp and Choba immediately fainted. Under this demonic triangular sea area, a small mysterious submarine-like object was quietly sneaking around. It was heading in a different direction from Luffy and the others, pointing its sword at the location of Moonlight Moria. The black submarine was obviously in existence that couldn't see the light of day. It was just that it was painted black and had no other markings. The interior decoration was extremely luxurious. It was as if he had walked into a palace. It was fully equipped and looked more like a private yacht. Young master, is it really okay for you to do this? If we are caught, we will be crushed like ants. The glory of the past 10 years is all thanks to that person. Otherwise, we might have been destroyed by that bastard Kaido. In the small swimming pool inside the yacht, Doflamingo was leisurely leaning against the shore. Trouble was the same. Compared to Doflamingo, who had a face full of enjoyment, Trouble was in fear and trepidation. Shut up. I'm just a dog in front of him. I have to bite whoever he wants me to bite. Doflamingo suddenly opened his eyes, which were instantly bloodshot. Thinking of Dustless's figure, he gritted his teeth and roared. When I'm not needed, he threw me into Dressrosa as a guard dog. Even that trash Caesar dares to flaunt his power in front of me. Outrageous. The angry roar filled with monstrous killing intent spread. The submarine under the sea trembled fiercely, and the water in the swimming pool instantly froze. Trouble's face also became silent. It was undeniable that Dustless had indeed been keeping them in the dark. Most of the time, he had locked Doflamingo in Dressrosa, and secretly cooperated with Caesar to develop the ancient weapon, Pluto. Trouble's mouth twitched as he looked at the ferocious Doflamingo. He immediately thought of Doflamingo's self-esteem, and the words that were about to come out of his mouth were swallowed back. In this chaotic world where ambitious and ruthless people were born, it was actually a great gift to be able to live without worries. So what if he was someone else's dog? Moreover, being Dustless's dog was far better than being someone else's dog. However, this was related to Doflamingo's self-esteem. If he said it bluntly, he might be beaten up or even killed by the angry Doflamingo. Doflamingo was extremely aggrieved. Unless Dustless allowed it, he had to rely on the submarine if he wanted to leave Dressrosa openly. He was like a mouse that couldn't be exposed to the light. It was self-evident how aggrieved he was. Now let's go find Moria to cooperate and discuss how to deal with Royce South. He will definitely agree to our conditions. With a crazy bloodthirsty smile on his face, Doflamingo said confidently, over the years I've roped in a lot of reliable people. Even that man has my informants around him. What's there to be afraid of? Trouble looked at the arrogant and exultant Doflamingo, and finally chose to remain silent. He felt that Doflamingo's words were unreliable. So what if he had an informant? In the face of absolute strength, any conspiracy was nothing, let alone an informant. Chapter 822. Seeing that Doflamingo was so determined, Trouble couldn't say anything. After all, Doflamingo is the boss of the family, and the words of the leader can't be refuted. That guy still looks at me with his old eyes from more than 10 years ago. I must teach him a lesson. Doflamingo's tone was full of revenge and hatred. From beginning to end, he had never been grateful to Dustless. He took him in because Dustless used him. Now the time has come, there is no need to continue to be his lackey. It's time to fight back. Gecko Moria, that idiot. Trouble couldn't help but be speechless. He felt sad for Doflamingo's ability to choose allies. Gecko Moria is a 7 warlords of the sea, but his strength is really not flattering. Don't underestimate him. The enemy of the enemy is an ally. Doflamingo sneered. Anyone who has grievances, hatred, or indirect interest disputes with Dustless is an ally in disguise. I always feel that it's not appropriate to go against him. It's a stupid feeling like a moth to a flame, Trouble said. Idiot, I can tell you clearly that even if we don't betray him, we may be killed by him in the future. Doflamingo said with great certainty. People like Dustless who do whatever they want, never care about the reason for killing people. Maybe just because he is unhappy, he will kill them. Trouble lowered his head and sat on the shore with his fat body. This time, Doflamingo secretly came to find Gecko Moria. Even the rest of the Don Quixote pirates didn't know. It is enough to see the seriousness of Doflamingo's mission. This is also helpless. After following Dustless for more than 10 years, Doflamingo knows that Dustless's means are terrible. It is no exaggeration to say that wherever there is an island, there may be a White Zetsu's clone. Here we are, master. There was a respectful voice in the cabin. Doflamingo and Trouble quickly dressed. After some tidying up, they stepped into Gecko Moria's territory, the terrifying three-masted ship. I thought I could breathe fresh air when I came out, but I didn't expect it to be such a rotten place. After going ashore, Doflamingo cursed his bad luck. He didn't expect Moonlight Moria to have such poor taste, choosing such a dark and rotten place as a base. He was as tasteless and vulgar as he was. Doflamingo, if you don't feel well, get out of here immediately. I didn't invite you over. Your dress, Rosa, is comfortable, but my place is indeed thousands of miles away. But in the end, it's just another person's dog. The merciless mockery fell on Doflamingo's face, causing his expression to take a turn for the worse. Dense killing intent floated on his face. Bang, bang, bang. The ground trembled, and a huge monster at least 5 or 6 meters tall appeared in front of Doflamingo and Trouble's eyes. He was dressed like a bat, his skin was pale, and his whole body was filled with a chill. He was one of the 7 warlords of the sea, Moonlight Moria. What do you mean? Doflamingo exuded a strong murderous aura. It was a taboo to be called a lackey. Now Uegwang Moria dared to slap him in the face. How could he bear it? 5 lines of different colors immediately gushed out from his hand, sharp as a knife. It seems that you want to fight. That's fine, but you'd better figure out what you're doing here. Moonlight Moria said calmly with a scary smile on his huge face. You win. After thinking about it, Doflamingo chose to stop. He came to talk about the content of cooperation, not to fight. But he still said unforgiving. If the guy Sand Crocodile hadn't died, I would never cooperate with someone like you. And, who is that little girl? The content of our cooperation is only known to the 2 of us. Staring at the pink-haired girl behind Moonlight Moria with murderous intent, Doflamingo said unkindly, she's harmless. Kill her as soon as possible. Only the 2 of us know? Then what's the matter with the fat man behind you? Moonlight Moria looked at the girl behind him and laughed strangely. Her name is Perona. She's my subordinate. This is my territory. What's wrong with bringing my subordinates here? A lump. Trouble was furious when he heard the words and glared at Moonlight Moria. His small eyes hidden in the crevices of his flesh were spewing flames. If it weren't for the existence of Doflamingo, he would have gone up and fought with Moonlight Moria. He actually came here. In the dead graveyard, the ground suddenly burst open, and a white head popped out. It was White Zetsu's avatar, looking at Doflamingo and Moonlight Moria, who had joined, and once again dived into the ground. Compared with the dead devil's triangular sea, Mariehua is like spring all year round. His courage is not small. He carefully bowed his head for more than 10 years, but in the end he chose to die. White Zetsu reported the information to Dustless for the first time. No matter how I look at it, it doesn't seem like a coincidence. The corners of Wu Chen's mouth opened slightly as he muttered to himself. Dustless can understand the appearance of the Straw Hat Pirates in the Devil's Triangular Sea, but Doflamingo obviously has bad intentions. If he remembers correctly, Bartholomew Kuma also went to Moria's territory. It's difficult for Dustless to treat this as an accident because these people are all his enemies, whether it's Ursa, the Straw Hat Pirates, Moonlight Moria, or Doflamingo. These people have grievances with Dustless. It's difficult to make Dustless not think too much. Chapter 8:23. Rubbing his temples, Dustless shook his head and opened his wise eyes. This didn't look like a coincidence. Those who had hatred or indirect grievances with him were all gathered in Moonlight Moria's territory. It was obviously abnormal. There must be something wrong when things are abnormal. They won't come up with an anti-thief alliance against me, right? Dustless's face was weird, and he doubted in a half-joking and half-serious tone. Anti-thief. For a moment, he didn't understand what Dustless meant. White Zetsu was shocked by conditioned reflex. After a while, he understood what Dustless meant. He smiled bitterly and said, "Most likely, they should be discussing how to deal with Master Dustless's anti-thief alliance." A group of people who had grievances with Dustless gathered together. In the direction of the sword, there was no one else except Dustless. Doflamingo, that traitorous guy has some skills. He even knows how to form a clique, but he's really disappointing. Even if he's looking for teammates, he won't just pull anyone in. He even wants a crooked melon like Moonlight Moria. Dustless sighed in disappointment. He thought Doflamingo could pull some kind of godlike teammate, but he didn't expect it to be Moonlight Moria. Moonlight Moria, forget it. Pretend I didn't say anything. White Zetsu couldn't help but feel speechless. Moonlight Moria was also a popular figure. He once fought with Kaido, one of the Yonko. Although he was unfortunately defeated and was driven out of the New World, he was also a famous great thief. He finally joined the 7 warlords of the sea. This showed that Moonlight Moria's strength was recognized by the government. Now, when it came to Dustless, he seemed to be no different from the legendary passerby. But since they have made a move, I will reluctantly play with them. His calm eyes flashed with a teasing look. Since someone dared to play, then Dustless would play with them to the end. He would never back down. Hearing this, White Zoo's expression froze. Thinking of Doflamingo's current importance, he quickly said, "We can't do without him in the process of building Pluto. It's not appropriate to kill him now. Once Doflamingo is killed, it means that no one will protect Caesar from building Pluton. And Dressrosa is an island that must be passed by in the second half of the New World. A large number of pirates visit every day. Without the deterrence of Doflamingo, the construction of Pluton will be exposed sooner or later. Of course I know this. I definitely won't kill him now. It's too cruel and unfair to kill Doflamingo without squeezing his value dry," Dustless said with a sneer on his face. However, with a playful smile on his face, Dustless said with a smile, "It's okay to send the Marines to scare them, and by the way, we can teach them a lesson." "Hancock," Dustless suddenly said. Hearing this, Hancock, who was standing behind Dustless, looked at him doubtfully. Her delicate and perfect jade face was full of puzzlement as she asked, "Young master, what are your orders?" "Go and bring me the Den Den Mushi that Sengoku gave me." When Hancock heard this, she thought it was an illusion and asked again, "Young master, are you sure it's the Den Den Mushi that Fleet Admiral Sengoku personally gave you?" Dustless rolled his eyes and said solemnly, "Of course. I thought I wouldn't need that thing, but I didn't expect it to be useful now. In that case, I will fulfill Sengoku's good intentions." White Zetsu looked at the master and servant blankly. He didn't understand what they meant. "I understand." Hancock nodded obediently and immediately disappeared into the dark corridor. Den Den Mushi? It looks very powerful. Is there such a Den Den Mushi? Seeing Hancock's back disappear, White Zetsu thought for a long time, but still couldn't figure it out. Suddenly, a thought flashed in his mind. He realized that the Den Den Mushi was needed to destroy Ini's lobby a few days ago, and he couldn't help but sweat. Dustless-sama, does he want to use the Den Den Mushi to order the destruction of the Sangue sailboat? White Zetsu asked in surprise. That's one of the 7 warlords of the sea, not a cabbage on the roadside. Dustless just closed his eyes and remained silent. He neither admitted nor denied it. Ta-ta-ta. After a while, there was a sound of messy footsteps, and a golden Den Den Mushi was held in his hand, and he was careful not to press the wrong button. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I believe that Sengoku also wants to teach Moria a lesson, Dustless said with a deep look in his eyes. He immediately took the golden den mushi from Hancock, and his eyes flashed with ridicule. It's good to let Gecko Moria have a taste of the Demon Slayer command. Anyway, it won't kill him. Consider it a lesson for dealing with Whitebeard before. After that, Dustless didn't hesitate to press the button of the golden den mushi. Guru. In the Marine headquarters, the silver den mushi used to receive the signal of the golden den mushi emitted a harsh sound, which attracted Vice Admiral Mole, who happened to pass by. He looked at the golden den mushi with a stunned face. Without waiting for Lieutenant General Mole to ask, the messenger in charge of receiving the signal reported loudly, General Royce South has issued the demon-slaying order. The direction is the Triangular Sea of the Demons, the Triangular Sea of Terror. Chapter 824. The reason why the Straw Hat Pirates went with Brook was that Luffy thought he was too handsome. Of course, he also sympathized with Brook's rough identity, and they were attacked on the way. For various reasons, they chose to help Brook regain the lost shadow. What kind of guy would survive here? This place is simply a graveyard in disguise. Usopp, who was aware of the dead atmosphere around him, said. The large open space in front of them was filled with various tombstones. Obviously, they were all dead. Some of the tombstones had decayed. Obviously, the people who rested here had been dead for many years. This place doesn't seem right. Robin also said with a depressed expression. She was keenly smelling that something was wrong. She always felt that there were countless eyes looking at them, which was very strange. Ka. The sound of the ground loosening came, attracting the attention of all the members of the Straw Hat Pirates, and then they saw a monster with a centaur head coming out of it. It's a zombie. A shrill scream resounded through the sky, and Usopp and the timid Chopper fell directly to the ground. This unexpected scene made all the members of the Straw Hat Pirates petrified and stood motionless. Even Luffy's eyes were empty, but in the next second, it was replaced by a cool gold star. In the closed room, there were only 4 figures. That guy is a Marine Admiral. I need chips to fight against him. At least chips that can tempt me. Gecko Moria said bluntly. It's best to be straightforward with people like Doflamingo. Of course, that's not a problem. Doflamingo waved his hand and said generously. To compete with people like Dustless, he must have something to impress Gecko Moria. Otherwise, there would be no profit. No one would help Doflamingo deal with Dustless. I will satisfy everything you want. Doflamingo laughed boldly, looking like a nouveau riche who didn't care. He had followed Dustless to plunder the people's wealth for more than 10 years. Doflamingo had accumulated countless treasures, or rather, things like devil fruits. In short, he didn't care. In order to deal with Dustless and get rid of his hateful identity as a lackey, Doflamingo chose to throw caution to the wind. Well, I hope you don't talk empty talk. And the alliance you mentioned, it shouldn't be just the 2 of us, right? Uaguang Moria asked expectantly. That's a secret for now. Doflamingo shook his head resolutely. Currently, he was the only one who knew about this secret. He couldn't make an exception. If putting on an act, the fox's tail will be revealed sooner or later. Taking back his gaze, Uaguang Moria was about to change the topic. He was eager to know about Dustless's past. Naturally, he could not let go of this great opportunity. The only person in the world who understood Dustless the most was probably Doflamingo. Boom. Ka. At this moment, the violent vibration made Uaguang Moria's words disappear. Then, a visible crack appeared in the closed secret room, and a cold wind blew in. Moria, you are so poor. The room used to receive VIPs is made of inferior materials. Doflamingo sneered mercilessly. Perona. Who did this? A cold, bone-chilling voice popped out from the corner of Uaguang Moria's mouth, permeating a very oppressive and fierce breath. Perona, who was drifting behind Uaguang Moria, swam uncontrollably. Under this domineering momentum, she could only linger on. I'm not too sure, Master Moria. Perona replied with cold sweat. She didn't leave Uaguang Moria's side for a second. Naturally, she didn't know what was happening outside. Give me half an hour to find out, or else… you know how I deal with things. I am fair in rewards and punishments. For those who neglect their duties, I will never let them go easily. Yueguang Moria warned with a roar. Doflamingo was surprised. Yueguang Moria's overbearing side was rare. At the same time, a strange color flashed in his eyes. This guy seems to be reprimanding this little girl. But in fact he is insinuating to me. Thinking of this, Doflamingo couldn't help but look at Yueguang Moria in a new light. He didn't expect this rude big guy to have such a wise side. Perona quickly left the sealed room and went to the source of the vibration. A faint golden light appeared in the darkness, and a handsome figure suddenly blocked in front of Perona. Girl! Where did this lonely ghost come from? Stay away from me! Perona, who was in a panic, roared. At the same time, she released countless ghosts to expel the mysterious young man's back, but they were all easily avoided. Is this your ability? Interesting. But compared to the ability of the devil fruit, I care more about other things. Please tell me everything, otherwise it will be hard for me to let you go. Dustless, who was wearing casual clothes, stood in front of Perona, looking at Perona, who was floating in the air with his hands behind his back. Ripples splashed in his calm eyes. Chapter 8:25. The appearance of Dustless scared Perona. She usually calls herself a ghost, but now she understands what a real ghost is. There is no breath, just like a standing dead person. If it wasn't for Dustless to remind her, maybe Perona wouldn't be aware of the existence of Dustless. Who are you? Suppressing the strong uneasiness in her heart, Perona asked with a trembling voice after her soft breaths had calmed down. Her tone was still full of fear. Although she did not know the person in front of her, the invisible oppression and majesty that came out of him made Perona not dare to breathe loudly. This unprecedented oppression penetrates deep into her limbs and soul. Perona wanted to resist, but she couldn't wave her hostile hands to Dustless. This simple question seems to be quite annoying. Dustless raised his eyebrows slightly and immediately shook his head and said, I am the Marine Admiral that Doflamingo and Gecko Moria talked about. Well, tell me the general content of what they said. I'm really looking forward to how ridiculous the performance of these two insects will be. After saying that, not only was Perona not afraid, she even heaved a sigh of relief. As we all know, Shichibukai is the existence recognized by the world government, so they are also allies with the Marine, and so are the subordinates of Shichibukai. I like women who are sensible. Shichibukai's subordinates. I am not their opponent? It's best not to have such a ridiculous idea. Dustless said as he saw the panic in Perona's eyes return to calmness. After that, he also released a piercing killing intent. In a trance, you can hear the screams of ghosts and howls of wolves, which is chilling. You are an admiral of the Marine. Please don't say anything, it will hurt the prestige of the Marine. Perona stared at Dustless's cold face, and there was a flash of fear in her eyes. The opponent was a Marine admiral, and she really couldn't resist. Say something? Your idea is unexpected. How should I say, unexpected ignorance. Dustless couldn't help but feel speechless. The Marine has done this kind of thing a lot, and even more despicable things than this. Well, don't force me to do it, be sensible. The impatient Dustless accentuated his tone, and there was a touch of coldness in his words. You, Perona, floating in the air, had a flash of struggle in her eyes. She told Dustless about the conversation between Doflamingo and Gecko Moria. After that, Gecko Moria will definitely tear her to pieces. I will never tell you. After a moment of contemplation, Perona replied. Dustless's eyes gradually became cold, and the light flashed on his fingertips, and a sharp whistling through the dark sky. A resplendent beam of light directly pierced through Perona, but it did not harm her at all. Ghost body, Gecko Moria's. Gecko Moria, that onion head, will ask you to be his subordinate. Gecko Onionhead, that Gecko Moria, Gecko. Black lines appeared on Perona's forehead as she floated in the air, and there were also crows flying over the sky. She immediately said proudly, You are right, any physical attack has no effect on me. However, Dustless's next sentence made Perona's face change dramatically, and she looked at him in disbelief. Is that so? Speaking of this, Dustless raised a teasing smile at the corner of his mouth. Your state should belong to the out-of-body state, but the biggest weakness is that your body can't move because of the out-of-body state. If I attack your body now. Hearing this, Perona's heart was cold, and her whole body was cold. She looked at Dustless incredulously, gritted her teeth and said, You actually recognized my fruit ability at a glance? You also understood my weakness in an instant. I gave you a chance before, but you gave it up yourself. Observation hockey spread like water ripples, taking in the movements of the entire castle into his eyes. Dustless swept straight to Perona's room. Bastard, who told you to run? Come back quickly. Perona hurriedly followed in horror, trembling with fear. As Dustless said, in the out-of-body state, her body is restricted and can't move. Even a weak human being can easily kill her. What's more, this opponent is a Marine Admiral. Whiz whiz whiz, Perona rushed directly through the wall to the room where her body was sleeping. Because she was a soul, she could ignore the existence of the wall and pass through the wall at will. Fortunately, I arrived in time. Seeing that there was no one in the room, Perona breathed a sigh of relief, and immediately her soul rushed straight into her body. A few seconds later, her body slowly opened her eyes. Are you awake? The first person she saw after opening her eyes was Dustless with a smile. I have been waiting for you for a long time, and you finally woke up. Hearing this, Perona's mouth twitched violently, her teeth clenched, and she stared at Dustless indignantly. This guy must have arrived early and deliberately waited for Perona's body to resurrect before showing up. You are despicable. Perona, whose body was resurrected, gritted her teeth and said unwillingly. She was easily subdued by Dustless. In front of a Marine Admiral, she was just a tender chick without any resistance. With a light pinch, she would die. The two sides are not at the same level at all. When a baby in swaddling clothes meets an adult strong man, resistance will only lead to death. Chapter 826. Perona's face was dark, and her pretty face lost its former luster. It was bleak, or desperate. Between Dustless and Gecko Moria, she had no other way to go. She could only choose one and offend the other. Don't kill my patience. In fact, I can directly extract your memory, but my skill is not very good, so a little mistake may turn you into an idiot. Dustless said in a half-joking, half-serious tone, full of threat. Damn it. Perona clenched her silver teeth, and her eyes kept flashing. Facing the unfathomable Marine Admiral in front of her, she was just a lonely boat in the vast ocean, and she may be swallowed at any time without leaving any residue. It seems that you really want to become an idiot. The cold palm of his hand touched Perona's face, and immediately climbed up and fell on the top of her head. A mysterious force overflowed from Dustless's palm. Perona was numb all over, and she trembled uncontrollably as if she had gone mad. Dustless gave her much more fear and oppression than Gecko Moria. Goodbye. His sight turned into Rinnegan Sharingan, and the devouring power in his palm was even stronger. When he was about to forcibly extract Perona's memory, her slightly sobbing voice entered his ears. I agree to your condition, Perona said while gnashing her teeth and glaring at Wuxia fiercely. Dustless's face was unchanged, and there was endless coldness. Obviously, tears were useless to this hard-hearted man, and it was difficult to even affect him. But I have a condition. Perona looked at Dustless nervously, and her eyes were pleading. You want to talk to me about conditions? Frowning, Dustless sneered in his heart. When he was about to refuse coldly, he saw Perona's nervous and pleading eyes. His tone couldn't help but stagnate. It seems that I still can't easily cut off the 7 emotions and 6 desires. With a sigh in his heart, Dustless's cold eyes also changed subtly. He didn't feel as indifferent as before, and he finally had a little more human touch. Why don't you tell me? However, you better not have any illusions. I can change my mind at any time, or even go back on my word and reject you. His indifferent face loosened, revealing a hint of warmth. His tone had a rare hint of gentleness. This? Perona's eyes flashed with hesitation, as if she was hesitating whether to speak or not. In her opinion, Dustless would probably laugh at her ruthlessly, and then coldly refuse her. After all, he could directly extract her memories. There was no need to talk too much. And there was no need to add a burden like Perona. Then she remembered Moonlight Moria's coldness and ruthlessness, as well as his bloody means of dealing with traitors. Perona gritted her teeth and said, "After betraying Moonlight Moria, he will definitely not let me go. I must follow you to be safe." After saying that, Perona lowered her head in embarrassment. Her exquisite jade-like hands tightly pinched the corner of her clothes. She didn't even have the courage to look at Dustless. That's it. After a while, Dustless looked at her in surprise and immediately asked softly, "I have a maid who is responsible for daily life and a capable secretary. What do you think you can do?" Perona's joyful face suddenly froze. She bit her lower lip tightly, and even some blood stains flowed out. She suddenly realized that she seemed to have no other advantages except fighting. Dustless, as a Marine admiral, never lacked people who could fight. He himself was the predator at the top of the pyramid. "Let's do this." Lowering his voice, Dustless stared at Perona and licked the dry and cracked corners of his mouth. "I still lack a maid to massage my legs and shoulders. This task will be handed over to you. How about it?" "You." These harsh words entered Perona's ears and immediately ignited her flames. A large number of ghosts floated out of her body. Just as she was about to launch an attack and kill Dustless, she suddenly realized that she was stared at by a pair of emotionless mechanical eyes. Her whole mind short-circuited, and the dancing ghosts in the air also disappeared. Looking up, it was Dustless with a cold face. "Want to dominate your own destiny? Sorry, that's the qualification of the strong. And you are just the one being dominated. In the past it was Gecko Moria, but now it's me." These words made Perona speechless and immediately nodded silently. Being dominated by Gecko Moria is okay. The Marine Admiral in front of her is more reliable than Gecko Moria. Boom boom boom. At this moment, the gloomy large hall suddenly trembled. Immediately, it burst apart and a large hole was dug out. After which, a few human figures rushed in through the hole. That group of useless guys. It seems that Moria's soldiers have been defeated. But then again, the strength of this group of pirates is really good. They can even break through here. Perona said quite meaningfully. It was the Straw Hat Pirates who broke into the interior of the hall. This is normal. His grandfather is the Marine hero Vice Admiral Garp, and his father is the world's most ferocious criminal, Dorag. It's reasonable that Luffy is talented. Looking at the Straw Hat Pirates in the distance, Dustless immediately turned and merged into the dark space. Perona took a deep look at the back behind her. She did the same and gradually disappeared with Dustless. Since she chose to abandon the dark, there was no reason to continue to be Gecko Moria's subordinates. Chapter 827. In the dead secret room, Dustless was sitting leisurely on a stone chair, and Perona was standing behind him. Her face was full of dissatisfaction, and all kinds of negative emotions were clearly visible. Perona couldn't help but be angry. Dustless's requirements were too much, and his style of living was not like a Marine admiral at all. Hey, are you kidding me? If you massage people's shoulders like this, you will be fired sooner or later. At least be a little more professional. Even if your skills are bad, you have to keep an apologetic smile on your face, instead of looking like an enemy who killed your father. Aware of the strong force coming from his shoulders, Dustless couldn't help but say. Under this strong force, his body not only did not feel relaxed and happy, but it became more and more uncomfortable. "I'm not going to wait." Perona angrily took away her small hands and complained. Pouting her face in anger, Perona scolded in her heart. She had never seen a person like Wuxia who knew how to enjoy himself. The strength must be neither too heavy nor too light. It must be just right. Simply outrageous. "Forget it, massage my legs," Dustless ordered with a straight face as his legs straightened. Perona heard the words and looked stiff. She heard the indifference in Dustless's tone. Even if she was unwilling, she still walked to Dustless and stretched out her soft little hand and gently hammered. "Not bad." Dustless whispered and immediately closed his eyes leisurely. Time passed quickly, and after about half a month, he opened his bright eyes. What did Gecko Moria and the traitor Doflamingo talk about? Dustless asked directly and immediately speculated. If it's right, the content should be how to deal with me. Now the little devils are not disciplined and like to jump around. His eyes suddenly became deep, remembering that when Doflamingo ran to Mariehua for help and shelter, Dustless opened an umbrella for him at that time. Now you don't even know how to repay the kindness, but you want to plot against him. The Alliance will deal with you together, Perona said truthfully. You? Didn't I say to call him young master? Dustless glared at Perona and said unhappily. Perona was extremely unhappy. She then looked at Dustless's cold face and nodded silently. She had no choice but to lower her head when she was under someone else's roof. Let's discuss the Alliance to deal with young master. Just the two of them? Dustless sneered. His words were full of disdain. It was difficult for him to pay attention to such a strange combination of mouse and sick cat. I heard there are others. Perona shook her head and immediately tilted her head to recall the contents of the previous conversation. Doflamingo once said that he had also silently roped in the people around the young master. The people around me? This is interesting. Ripples appeared in his calm eyes, and his bored expression was replaced by curiosity. Dustless only had a few people around him. Who exactly is it? Hawkeye or Cone Green Pepper? Or someone else? I hope it's an unexpected character. Staring at Perona's face, Dustless asked with a smile. This Doflamingo has been keeping a secret. He didn't say it, and he also kept a secret from Gecko Moria. Perona shook her head, indicating that she didn't understand. Is that so? Dustless's eyes flashed with pity. He immediately stood up and stretched. It's time to leave here. I gave the order to kill the devil before I went to the three-masted ship. It won't be long before the Navy comes to destroy this rotten place. After that, Dustless walked out and walked toward the tunnel ahead. Well, turning his head to look at Perona standing still, Dustless frowned and immediately wondered. There is no need to be afraid. You are not a wanted criminal. You don't have to care about the Navy. Almost all of Gecko Moria's men were noobs, and most of them had no bounty. Looking up at Dustless's back, Perona's eyes flashed with embarrassment. She immediately gritted her teeth and said, My shadow was taken away by Gecko Moria. I can't leave this place until I get it back. As she spoke, tears welled up in the corners of Perona's eyes. Everyone wanted to live the life of their dreams. If she could, she also didn't want to live in this dark place that was neither human nor ghost. That guy is despicable enough. But his style of doing things is like this. For the so-called subordinates, he has always used them as pawns. When he joined the Shichibukai, Moria killed all his crew members and gave them to the government. Dustless explained softly, and immediately walked to Perona's side and passed by her. Regardless of Perona's stunned eyes, he returned to the same way. The direction was the original room where Doflamingo and Gecko Moria discussed cooperation. Master, are you going too? Hurriedly keeping up with Dustless, Perona asked anxiously. Are you going to get caught? Gecko Moria is very strong. He is one of the Shichibukai. The tone revealed deep fear and helplessness towards Gecko Moria. This world pays attention to the law of the jungle. The weak are prey to the strong, and the weak are destined to be dominated by predatory animals higher in the food chain. So what? Without stopping, Dustless glanced at Perona and said as he walked. He is one of the Shichibukai, and I am also a Marine Admiral. Why should I be afraid of a sea thief? The shadow that was taken away by him can be taken back again. Perona nodded like a chicken pecking rice and resolutely chased after Dustless's back. Chapter 828. In the dark corridor, two vague silhouettes were walking towards the corridor ahead. The two figures were extremely thin, and the tallest person was only about 1.75 meters. In this world where giants were flying everywhere, it was really not worth mentioning. Are you going to find trouble with Gecko Moria so casually? Catching up with Dustless, Perona asked with a strange face. Suddenly changing a boss to hit the face of the previous boss, she felt that something was wrong. She felt uncomfortable all over, and she felt like a villain. To get back what belongs to you, do you have to be sneaky? His footsteps stopped. Dustless looked at Perona in confusion. To get back what belongs to you. Is it necessary to be sneaky? This is a matter of course, and it is necessary to do it openly. That's not it. Hearing this, Perona shook her head like a rattledrum. Suddenly turning over and stepping on the former boss under her feet, Perona always felt that it was a dream, and there was an unrealistic feeling. She was afraid that the cruel reality after waking up would make her desperate. Those guys are really stupid. The demon slaughtering order is still active. Dustless stared at the distant sea, and there was no trace of the navy. Demon slaughtering order? What is that? Staring at Dustless's handsome face, Perona asked curiously. Hearing this, Dustless's footsteps suddenly stopped, looking around the entire island-like ship, and casually explained. It's nothing, just completely burn this big ship that looks unsightly. At the same time, Doflamingo also left the terrifying three-masted ship and left quietly in a submarine. He thought that no one would notice, but in fact, his every move was clearly seen by Dustless. I have contacted all the people who should be contacted. I hope Gecko Moria will not disappoint. Inside the submarine, Doflamingo was lying comfortably on the sofa with his legs crossed leisurely. He hummed an unknown tune as if victory was within his grasp. Hearing this, Treble, the second in command of the Don Quixote pirates, shook his head with a wry smile and couldn't help but advise. Even if you can hold Royce South's people, including his men, don't forget that he still has an ancient weapon like Pluton. Treble's tone was filled with hidden bitterness as he pointed the spearhead at Doflamingo. Back then, it was this guy who had contributed Pluto's blueprint to Dustless in order to survive. This was a blatant aid to the enemy. Nether King? Doflamingo sneered and said proudly, don't forget that the Netherworld King's current construction base is Dressrosa. Once it's completed, I'll rob him. Doflamingo's eyes were full of fanaticism. It seemed that he could already imagine the scene of controlling Pluton, sweeping the new world, and trampling on the Yonko, for emperors. Even his hands and feet were waving uncontrollably. The pavilion closest to the water enjoys the moonlight first. Pluton is being built in Dressrosa. Once it's completed, the first person to get him will be Doflamingo. Treble saw this and couldn't say much. After all, in the Don Quixote pirates, Doflamingo still has the final say. Caesar, that bastard, I must tear him to pieces. Thinking of Caesar, Doflamingo's eyes spat fire, and the bloodthirsty murderous aura all over his body began to go berserk. That guy often relied on Dustless's high opinion of him to order Doflamingo around. Just thinking about it made him gnash his teeth in anger. Being ordered around by an ant had deeply wounded Doflamingo's self-esteem, leaving an unerasable shadow in his heart. Bang bang bang. In the cold dark corridor, a 6 or 7 meter tall figure swayed left and right. Every time this mysterious creature took a step, the ground would vibrate. That group of useless wastes, they can't even clean up a few small fish, and made me lose face. Gecko Moria's face was black. He had just discussed the terms of cooperation with Doflamingo. As a result, his room was suddenly demolished. It was self-evident how depressed he was. Most pirates attach great importance to face. Hey, you dare to come back? Looking straight ahead, looking at Perona who suddenly flashed, Gecko Moria said angrily, it's all because of your group of incompetent subordinates that I lost face today and lost my bargaining chip in front of Doflamingo. However, Perona remained calm and looked as if it had nothing to do with her. From now on, I am no longer your subordinate. Give me back my shadow. Perona stared at Gecko Moria and said coldly. Hearing this, Gecko Moria seemed to have heard the funniest joke in the world and said contemptuously, do you think you can still be scared after getting on my ship? In your dreams. Immediately, he turned and stared at Perona. Gecko Moria's tone was full of sarcasm. Of course, if you can beat me, I can set you free. If not, shut up and work for me. Hearing this, Perona gritted her teeth and stared at Gecko Moria. She guessed that Gecko Moria would imprison her and live on this dark island forever. She can't, but can I do it? Chapter 829. The ghostly voice resounded through the void, and immediately countless photons converged. In the dark corridor, it was as dazzling as the sun for a moment. Gecko Moria subconsciously closed his eyes. Beside Perona, a large number of high-density photons condensed here, and then reassembled. A young silhouette could be clearly seen. His hair was messy, and his eyes were deep and sparkling. His face had an indifference that would never change. The invisible self-confidence. It seems that the operation of the general trend of heaven and earth is according to the will of the person in front of him. Marine Admiral? Wiping his eyes, Gecko Moria thought he was old and dizzy. It is no wonder that Gecko Moria is so surprised. The terrifying three-masted ship is rarely seen. Now a Marine Admiral has inexplicably descended. How can he not be surprised? Immediately thinking of the words just now, his proud face solidified, his face turned gloomy, and he stared at Perona with a gloomy face. He almost vomited blood in his heart. No wonder she dares to be so bold. It turns out that she has hooked up with a Marine Admiral. Perona is my subordinate. Your Excellency must fight for her. She is just an ant. Gecko Moria smiled at her. In the end, he almost gnashed his teeth and roared. The hysterical roar scared Perona, and she quickly hid behind Dustless. She was sure that if Dustless abandoned her, he would definitely be torn to pieces by the angry Gecko Moria. Any pirate hates traitors. Her hands instinctively grasped Dustless's arm. Perona knew that at this moment, Dustless was her only life-saving straw. If she was abandoned, she would only step into hell. There is no need to worry. Dustless gave her a comforting look, indicating that she did not need to be afraid. Perona nodded timidly, but still hid behind Dustless, looking at Gecko Moria in fear. The strength of her grip on Dustless did not lessen, but became tighter and tighter. Dustless could not help but be speechless. In all fairness, he did not feel that Moonlight Moria was terrifying. He was just an ordinary member of thousands of beings. There was nothing special about him. Perona is my subordinate. Please don't meddle in other people's business. Presumably Fleet Admiral Sengoku and Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, don't want a gap between Shichibukai and Marine. Soon the Marine headquarters and Shichibukai will need to join forces to deal with Whitebeard. Yu Guang Moria said solemnly, with a hint of warning in his words. Are you threatening me? Dustless narrowed his eyes into crescents. Only those who knew him well would know that the current Dustless was several times more dangerous than usual. His entire body was filled with an ominous and dangerous aura. This has nothing to do with threats. It's a fact. Yu Guang Moria still refused to give in. Everything had a bottom line. Dustless took away his subordinate so casually. If he did not even dare to say a word, he would definitely become the laughing stock of the world in the future, and his reputation would be ruined. I thought you would use your brain to do things, but now it seems that I am naive. I overestimated your IQ. With a thick sneer on his face, Dustless taunted. From beginning to end, you have made a mistake. To deal with Whitebeard, in fact, people of your level can't play a role at all. Sengoku painstakingly tried to win you over to deal with Whitebeard, but it's just to raise the momentum of Marine. Do you really think you can challenge Whitebeard with your level? Don't dream. Someone like Yu Guang Moria can barely deal with the captain of the Whitebeard pirates. Fighting Whitebeard head-on is like a moth to a flame. Are you looking down on me? Glaring at Dustless, Yu Guang Moria clenched his fists tightly, and his eyes were about to burst out. His tone was full of killing intent. I don't want to fight with you, but it doesn't mean that I am afraid of you. I am not a coward like Blackbeard. Don't push your luck. Yu Guang Moria trembled with anger. He really didn't want to fight with Dustless. Although he tried to deny it, he had to admit that this guy's strength was unfathomable. If he tried to challenge him, he might be doomed. But Dustless was too arrogant. Not to mention snatching away his subordinates for the time being. They also ridiculed him again and again. Yu Guang Moria could not swallow this in any case. No matter what, he used to be one of the world's famous great pirates. Now he was like a clown in front of Wuxia. He was not presentable and could not enter the Hall of Elegance. Just in a flash, the atmosphere went down sharply, full of gunpowder. As long as it was a tiny spark, it could detonate Yu Guang Moria's gunpowder barrel. I am also telling a fact. What you said just now, I will return it to you. Dustless said mercilessly. Immediately, his eyes suddenly turned cold, overflowing with cold light. It seems that if I don't teach you a lesson, you won't jump out of Perona's shadow. That's good. I will show you a little. Otherwise, it will be difficult for you to understand the meaning of my previous words. Open your eyes and see clearly. The gap between us is so big. With a bright light, Dustless disappeared in an instant, flashing toward Guang Moria. In the same place, only Perona, who was unaware of it, was left. Shadow Magician. A monster composed entirely of shadows condensed in an instant. And it was exactly the same size as Guang Moria. This is one of my moves. It can be used for defense and attack. If you want to hit me, you have to fight him first. Guang Moria laughed wildly. Fight? What are you dreaming about? This is just an unequal war, a one-sided annihilation. Crack. The shadow that gave him high hopes was easily torn apart by Dustless in less than a second. It was so simple that it was no different from tearing paper scraps. Chapter 830. Gecko Moria's eyes were dull, and he couldn't believe that the shadow was torn apart and destroyed in an instant. His head was blank like a paste. It was the first time in his life that the shadow was destroyed so easily. Therefore, he was in a trance. Laser. The moment the golden flash touched Gecko Moria, he barely reacted. Shadow Warrior. A shadow with the same size and appearance as Gecko Moria rose from the ground, and once again blocked in front of him, resisting the attack of the light beam. Boom boom boom. Ka ka ka. The flash burst, and the hot wave of fire swallowed the entire shadow. A large hole was torn in the abdomen of the 5 or 6 meters high black shadow, and it immediately collapsed and collapsed, like ink splashing all over the ground. The shadow was defeated so easily? Looking at the black stains in disbelief, Moria felt that he was dreaming. This kind of thing, it would be strange if it works. As I said before, this is an unequal war. From the beginning, this is destined to be a unilateral annihilation. You have no chance of winning. The affirmative tone announced that Gecko Moria was destined to be defeated, just like God's will. Don't talk nonsense. I want to see how big the gap between Shichibukai and Admiral is. Gecko Moria argued with a red face. The shadow on the ground was strangely suspended in the air, and immediately twisted rapidly. Suddenly, it turned into countless black bats, biting toward Dustless and Perona. Scattered bats. Tens of thousands of bats flew over continuously. Their mouths were wide open, revealing sharp fangs that could easily tear a human's bones apart. Have you run out of ideas? Only this kind of boring trick is left. Taking a step forward, looking at the large number of shadow bats in front of him, Dustless sneered, his eyes widened, and invisible ripples spread. Buzz! The mysterious force broke out of his body and turned into an intangible wave. Where it passed, the buildings were cracked, and the shadow bats galloping were all annihilated. Gecko Moria was shocked, and the mysterious wave just now also brushed his body. He stretched out his mentality of being unable to resist, and even absurdly wanted to kneel down and surrender. Was that Haushikahaki? The hair all over his body stood up uncontrollably. Moonlight Moria's body was still trembling slightly. If one looked closely, one would find that his body was crushed. He was just bent over and looked at the ground with a blank face. Just now, the Haushikahaki that almost crushed the entire castle has obviously reached the point of perfection, and the huge deterrent is enough to rewrite the natural environment, and even the sky can be crushed. Courtesy demands reciprocity. Since you've finished your attack, it's my turn. Without waiting for Moonlight Moria to react, Dustless disappeared in an instant. When his body flashed again, he was already infinitely close to Moonlight Moria's face, followed by his shins full of flashes. Lightspeed kick. In an instant, the light became dozens of times more dazzling than before, and it was filled with a strong destructive power. The speed of light was beyond human understanding. By the time Gecko Moria realized it, he had already made defensive preparations, but the effect was still minimal. Boom boom boom. The huge body was impacted by the flash, and after a moment of stalemate, Moonlight Moria flew out and was forced to fly hundreds of feet away. And during that time, he also smashed several walls. Even the stone pillars supporting the castle were smashed and destroyed, and it was possible to tilt and collapse at any time. It hurts, ouch, screams resounded through the dark void. Moonlight Moria grimaced in pain. He was covered in blood, and his belly, which was attacked by Dustless's lightspeed kick, was obviously scorched and sunken. Even though Dustless's height and Moonlight Moria's were worlds apart, the difference in strength between the two was also worlds apart. Do you understand now? This is the gap between us. People of your level are decades too early to deal with Whitebeard. Although Moonlight Moria's strength is good, if he wants to have an effect on Whitebeard, he must reach the level of a Marine Admiral. The current Moonlight Moria is obviously not enough. Scattered bats. The dense bats once again swept out of his body, and the direction locked was Dustless. Same old trick? It's boring. Looking at the flying bats with a blank face, Dustless did not hide. He thought that these bats were used to attack, and then he would use his elementalization to avoid them. He did not expect the situation to take a turn for the worse. Shadowbox. With Moria's order, countless shadow bats directly melted and turned into a black cage, trapping Dustless in it. Ha ha. Now you can't move dash, Poochie. The sharp cold light cut through the void, and the golden afterimage that had not yet retreated could be seen. The castle was suddenly lit up, and looking at it, a sharp sword easily penetrated the black shadow cage. Dustless walked out of it like taking a stroll. His eyes did not change, and the time from start to finish was less than a second. Even if you are a slow idiot, you have to have a limit. The gap between us, you can never surpass or make up for it. My realm, the probability of you reaching it is 0. Chapter 831. Looking at Dustless's thin body, Gecko Moria raised his hands and fell to the ground again. Gecko Moria looked cold, and a sense of powerlessness rose in his heart. This powerlessness and fragility deep in his soul almost made him unable to raise his hands to resist the enemy. After a short fight, the result almost made Gecko Moria vomit blood and collapse. The two sides were not at the same level at all, and there was a dimensional gap. His face was all squeezed together, and Gecko Moria looked unwilling, locked on Perona, who was grinning, and the flame index in his heart was rising. He can admit that he lost to Dustless. Anyway, there are many pirates caught by him in the New World, and it is normal to lose to a Marine Admiral. In the world, I am afraid that only the legendary Yonko for Emperors has this ability. Don't be proud. Glaring gloomily at Perona, Gecko Moria's low tone was crazy, and you can hear the meaning of a fight. Moria, don't ask for trouble, hand over Perona's shadow. Sweeping the struggle in Gecko Moria's eyes, Dustless sighed and shook his head. If you really make me angry, it's not as simple as skin trauma. Gecko Moria was bruised all over, but it was still skin trauma, and it didn't hurt his ribs or internal organs. As a member of the 7 warlords of the sea, Dustless still chose to take special care of him. If it was any other pirate, they might have died long ago. Then should I thank you for not killing me? Hearing this, Gecko Moria's eyes were burning, and he immediately gnashed his teeth and screamed. Of course. Dustless said with his eyes as calm as water. If he really wanted to kill Gecko Moria, this guy would have died long ago. With a change of topic, Wu Chen's tone was obviously cold. However, this special care also has a time limit. If you miss it, it's as difficult as ascending to heaven to look back. Hearing this, Gagwang Moria's expression stiffened, and his clenched fists trembled. After glaring fiercely at Perona, his tone was full of sarcasm and disdain. Do you only know how to hide behind others? If you have the guts, come out and fight me fair and square. These fierce words were obviously meant to provoke him. Unfortunately, he was destined to be disappointed. Not only did Perona not fall into the trap, but she also made a grimace at Moonlight Moria. The look of a villain intoxicated with success was quite funny. Bastard, just you wait. Seeing this scene, Moonlight Moria was so angry that he vomited blood. Half an hour ago, he was still trembling in fear. Half an hour later, he dared to ride on his head and look at his face openly. The depression in his heart was self-evident. Moria. A sharp roar came from the ground below. Looking down, it was the members of the Straw Hat Pirates, and the particularly conspicuous skeleton man Brooke. Obviously, the Straw Hats had experienced a big battle, and there were obvious scars all over their bodies. That group of useless trash. Moonlight Moria's face was livid. He suddenly realized that his ability to select his subordinates was indeed not very good. Except for the traitor, it looked like the other members had all been trampled by the Straw Hats. It's a little early for you to come here for the time being. It's more appropriate to go back a little. Lifting his right foot gently, a large number of photons lingered on it, revealing the sharpness and destructive power, far more powerful than the attack on Moonlight Moria just now. Even because of the excessive shine, it was as dazzling as the sun. The scorching and dazzling flash could burn human eyes at a glance. Light speed kick. The flash poured down, leaving an afterimage in the void, and went straight to the Straw Hat Pirates on the ground. The unexpected flash was extremely fast, and hit the ground almost instantly. A huge flame slowly rose into the air. Boom boom boom, the harsh roar resounded throughout the terrifying three-masted ship, and the fire in the night was particularly bright, giving clear guidance to the Marines in the distance because of the devil-slaying order. A large deep pit appeared on the scorched ground, and everyone in the Straw Hat Pirates was deeply trapped in it. Their bodies were severely burned, and everyone's consciousness was temporarily fainted. Only Zoro, Sanji, and Luffy were fine. Their willpower was extremely strong, and they barely supported their bodies to stand up. They couldn't help but raise their heads sadly. Just now, they didn't even see who the enemy was, and they were attacked by this terrifying attack. I'm asking you for the last time. Hand over Perona's shadow. Don't make me repeat this sentence, or next time your head will be moved, Moria. With a murderous tone, he was obviously not joking. Moonlight Moria's face twitched. In his life, this day seemed to be the most tragic day. His subordinates betrayed him, and his ship was attacked by a group of fleas. Except for Perona, his subordinates were completely wiped out, and he was attacked by the Straw Hat Pirates one after another. And now he was being threatened by this Marine Admiral. You are ruthless. Moonlight Moria finally chose to let go of Perona's shadow. The only end for him to go against Dustless is death. He can only bury this unforgettable hatred deep in his heart. When he meets Doflamingo in the future, this blood feud will be repaid with interest, and it will be impossible for him to forget it. A black shadow swept out of Moonlight Moria's body, and went straight to Perona. Chapter 832. The black shadow drilled into Perona's body, and the shadow that had disappeared for many years reappeared. Perona waved her arms excitedly like a little girl. It's just an ant. Why do you not hesitate to fight against Shichibukai? It's not good for you as a Marine. Gecko Moria asked in a low voice. Anyone would think twice about offending Shichibukai for a worthless little girl. It's simple. It seemed that Gecko Moria didn't understand such a simple question. Dustless showed a helpless expression. No way, keeping promises is my biggest shortcoming. Let's go. Immediately, regardless of Guang Moria's astonished eyes, Dustless leisurely turned around and simply ignored his existence and left. Perona nodded gently and secretly looked at Gecko Moria, who was angry, but didn't dare to speak. Her heart was violently shocked, like a stormy sea that could never be calm. Following Gecko Moria for many years, Perona witnessed Gecko Moria's coldness. He was an existence that killed people without blinking. Others in front of him were like insects trembling. Now Gecko Moria was the opposite. In front of Dustless, his identity was changed and he became a weak insect. You think you can escape from Laozi's claws? You will look good in the future. Looking at Wu Chen's back, even though he was close at hand, in Moonlight Moria's eyes, he was too far away to catch up. It won't be long before you look good. Gecko Moria roared ferociously from the bottom of his heart. His whole body erupted with astonishing hostility, as terrifying as a ghost. At first he hesitated whether to cooperate with Doflamingo to deal with Dustless, but now it seems imperative. That kind of character, if you want to surpass him with your own efforts, you can do it in your dreams. Gecko Moria muttered, and remembered what Doflamingo said at the time. At that time he thought it was a joke, but now it seems that it is true. The cooperation with a hesitant attitude has now become affirmation. As a pirate, you can either become the king of 10,000, or be suppressed forever, unable to raise your head. Apart from these two roads, there is no other way to go. Why don't you kill him? Perona held the pink parasol and stared at Wu Chun, who was calm and composed. She asked puzzledly, "With those people taking care of it, we don't need to worry." Dustless pointed at the straw hats and left them. Perona's face was full of doubts. Although the group of people's fighting power and willpower were amazing, they were barely able to deal with Shichibukai, and they were even setting themselves on fire. Pure combat power doesn't mean anything. What's more, several of them together are not much worse than Emolia. Dustless was too lazy to talk nonsense. No matter what the reason was, it was an indisputable fact that the Straw Hats had crushed Moonlight Moria. At the same time, about an hour later, a huge figure also quietly boarded the terrifying three-masted ship, thinking that no one would notice it. This person's height was no less than Moonlight Moria's. The only difference was that Moonlight Moria was dressed as a bat, while the mysterious visitor was dressed as a bear. Since it's the son of Dolag, even if he can't defeat Moonlight Moria, he should be able to hold on for a while. The mysterious man exhaled a cold breath, and his voice was as cold and emotionless as a machine. With the faint light and shadow, the huge shadow emerged. With the title of Tyrant, and one of the Shichibukai, Bartholomew Kuma. "Yo Kuma." The sudden voice came into his ear. Kuma's mechanical face was stunned, and he immediately turned around. "It's you. This is Moria's territory. What are you doing here? Don't talk to me in this commanding tone. My legs are on my body, and it's my freedom to go wherever I want, but you?" His sharp eyes could penetrate people's minds. Dustless said with a smile, "I want to hear your reason for coming to the three-masted ship." Hearing this, Kuma looked stiff and immediately said, "I am Shichibukai. It is my duty to help the government catch pirates. The world is going downhill. I haven't seen you for many years, and you are so good at lying. Help the government catch pirates? This kind of funny joke is useless to deceive a 3-year-old child." Looking directly at Kuma's eyes under his glasses, Dustless said Kuma's purpose. "You want to say to catch the Straw Hat Pirates? I think it's the opposite. After hearing that I landed on the three-masted ship, you couldn't wait to come here. You were afraid that I would kill all the Straw Hat Pirates, so you found time to help them escape. This is just your baseless speculation." Kuma said with a blank face. His voice was no different from steel, and always remained indifferent. Although most of his body was transformed, he still maintained his consciousness. Glancing at Kuma, Dustless couldn't help but feel funny. Luffy was the son of Dolag, and the people in the world who knew it were probably less than 5. As a unique transmigrator, Dustless was clear about it. Therefore, Kuma said that he was going to catch the Straw Hat Pirates, but he was actually looking for a chance to let them escape. Chapter 833. In Bear's serious eyes, Dustless's guess was just baseless. There was no evidence. To put it bluntly, it was just nonsense. "Do you think all this is a coincidence?" Wuchen didn't get angry. He just asked calmly with a light tone. After living for nearly half a century, he had long developed the mentality of not changing his expression in the face of anything. If I remember correctly, Dalek's full name is Manchi D. Dalek, and Straw Hat Luffy's surname is also Manchi. Do you think all this is an accident? And you used to be a high-level cadre of the Revolutionary Army, and now you inexplicably came to the island where Straw Hat Luffy is hovering. Isn't all this a bit too coincidental? Looking deeply at the tyrant bear, whose expression didn't change, Wuchen said earnestly. His lowered tone obviously meant something. How could this guy know this? Even though the whole person's face is still unchanged, Tyrant Bear's heart is actually in a stormy situation. Dustless is not only right, but he even knows some things better than him. Even though most of its body had been transformed into a machine, Tyrant Bear was still sweating coldly at this moment, and its whole body was cold. It gave him an illusion that Wuchen in the past was also a high-level member of the Revolutionary Army. Like I said before, these are all your personal conjectures. Sorry, sometimes some things are so coincidental. Don't make wild guesses. I just came here to catch Straw Hat. As for whether he can escape or not, it depends on Straw Hat's ability. Tyrant Bear is also a big pirate who has lived for decades, so he quickly calmed down. His voice is still unchanged, and his tone is always the same as before. You're really stubborn. But it doesn't matter. Anyway, it has nothing to do with me. Wuxia said casually as if it had nothing to do with him. Bear, maybe you don't know one thing. Dustless's serious face suddenly changed, and he said to Bear with a smile. Before coming, I unfortunately met a group of Straw Hat pirates and almost killed them. After that, Dustless watched Bear's every move. Although Bear hit it very cleverly, Dustless clearly saw that his fist suddenly loosened. Is that all you want to say? Bear pretended to be calm and asked. The corner of his mouth twitched, but Wuxia saw it clearly. Of course not. Moria was gnashing his teeth against Straw Hat pirates, and you know the consequences. Wuxia glanced at Xiongyi and said carelessly, there's one more thing. In this world, there are always some people who don't know their own limits. They like to do all kinds of stupid things that make people laugh. Moreover, they always think that they're the final winner. Don't you think this kind of people is ridiculous? I'm not interested in answering your questions, goodbye. Tyrant Bear passed by Dustless. He naturally knew that Dustless's words were insinuating, mocking himself, including those who tried to challenge Dustless. You have to hurry up. Before I came, I gave the Marine an order to kill the devil. It won't be long before Gecko Moria's home. I'm afraid it will become a pile of fire. Boom! Turning around leisurely, Tyrant Bear's calm voice was obviously raised, apparently angry, and he said hoarsely, you dare to order the Marine to attack Shichibukai without authorization. Is the Marine going to tear up the agreement with Shichibukai? This is just for Gecko Moria. What's more, it's not you. Now your identity is just a research material for the government. There is no need to worry about it. Dustless said casually, and his tone was somewhat gloating. This is his own fault. A while ago, when he was dealing with Whitebeard Gecko Moria, he ran away at the critical time. This is just the punishment given to him by the Marine. It's obviously just your personal malicious revenge. How dare you drag the Marine's head? Taking a deep look at Dustless, Bear turned and left. At this moment, the Marine fleet, after several turns, also found the trace of the terrible three-masted ship and galloped over. This was all because of Dustless's previous lightspeed kick, which allowed them to find the direction from this strange sea. The scale of this devil-slaughtering order fleet is obviously different from the past. Whether it was the O'Hara incident 20 years ago or the Sentinel Island incident, not long ago, it was far less than the scale of this fleet. The number of Marine battleships assembled is obviously more than 10 battleships and 5 vice-admirals. The scale has reached 20 or 30 battleships. I'm afraid the number of vice-admirals is completely more than 5. After all, the opponent this time is one of the Shichibukai. In the past, Gecko Moria also challenged 100 Beast Kaido. Even if he is unfortunately defeated, his strength is worthy of being treated with caution. I really don't know how Gecko Moria provoked that person. Mole Vice-Admiral and a group of Vice-Admirals gathered at the bow of the ship inside. The person who issued the task of slaughtering the Devil Slaughtering Order was Dustless. They thought that Sengoku would directly refute Dustless's order, but they didn't expect him to simply listen to it, and even order other ships to support. All the Vice-Admirals were silent. They naturally didn't understand the cause of the matter, but they were responsible for the implementation. What's more, Sengoku had already nodded in disguise. Let's do it. Chapter 834. After Dustless disappeared, the awakened Straw Hat Pirates immediately fought with Gecko Moria. Luffy, who reported the love index, vowed to take back the shadow for Brook, and he would not break his promise. After a lot of hard work, the entire pirate group was almost crippled, and they defeated Gecko Moria. Only Zoro and Sanji barely kept their consciousness in the entire pirate group, and everyone else almost fainted. Of course, Robin was pretending to be asleep. You actually defeated Gecko Moria. Congratulations, young pirates. The voice of surprise came quietly, and Zoro and Sanji both had goosebumps all over their bodies. The two looked at each other in horror, and could see the horror in each other's eyes. The owner of this mysterious voice, maybe if he wanted to kill the two of them just now, his body would have been separated by now. The two of them looked for the source of the voice in unison, and what they saw was a behemoth at least 5 or 6 meters tall, dressed quite similar to Big Bear, holding a book in his hand, expressionless like a sculpture. He looked at Zoro and Sanji with a condescending gaze. "Worthy of being your son, Dorag." Staring at the unconscious Luffy, Bear nodded with satisfaction and immediately looked at Zoro and Sanji, and his eyes with glasses flashed. "Who are you?" Zoro's tachi was unsheathed, and he looked at Tyrant Bear warily, smelling an unprecedented danger and oppression. The cigarette butt in Sanji's hand was also pinched out, and he was also meticulously guarded against Tyrant Bear, smelling an unprecedented ominous aura from him. Far more terrifying than Gecko Moria. "I am one of the Shichibukai, like Gecko Moria and Crocodile, who was defeated by you before." Tyrant Bear suddenly sat on the ground and carefully flipped through the book in his hand, ignoring the nervous Zoro and Sanji, and said to himself, "This time, I was ordered to catch you." "You don't need to say this, I guessed it." Sanji and Zoro said in unison. "The Shichibukai that have appeared at present are their enemies, plus this bear-like creature in front of them. This is already the third. The first two are Crocodile and Gecko Moria." "Is that so?" The book he was reading suddenly closed, and Tyrant Bear stood up. "First, let me introduce myself. My name is Bartholomew Bear." "Do it. Don't expect me to let you go like Lewis South." Bear's tone was low, and there was already a transparent air shield floating in his hand. Obviously he was serious. Although these people's strength was not bad for the time being, in the new world where there were so many strong people, they were at most considered beginner-level rookies. This could also be considered a form of training. "Lois South? Who is that guy?" Zoro and Sanji looked at each other, and looked at the Tyrant Bear in confusion. "You don't even know his name. But that's right, it's still too early for half-baked people like you to touch his domain." Dustless's figure floated in his eyes as Tyrant Bear explained. "The person who severely injured you was actually Royce South, but he seemed to have left the three-masted ship due to some other matters. Why did he deliberately let us go?" Zoro and Sanji didn't understand. In their pirate group, there was no relative of Dustless. Bear's voice was surprised and he immediately said, "Deliberately let you go? Don't you understand?" Bear's tone was filled with sadness and pity, as well as undisguised sneer and contempt. "Will the giant that supports the sky be as ignorant as Littlefinger? Don't think that you are strong. In fact, you are not even qualified to fill the gaps between his teeth." He mercilessly attacked several people, and there was a deep sneer in his words. These merciless words made Zoro and Sanji clench their fists and deeply hurt their self-esteem, making the two of them stare at Tyrant Bear, full of killing intent. "You just worked so hard to kill Gecko Moria." Looking at Gecko Moria, who had fainted in the distance, Tyrant Bear pointed to him and said, "As long as that person wants to, I guess he can kill Gecko Moria in an instant." Tyrant Bear said bluntly, and immediately remembered Dustless's strange eyes. "Maybe you don't have to do it. That man's most powerful thing is not physical attack. His mysterious eyes may be just a casual glance at Gecko Moria, and he can easily kill him in seconds. There is no need to do it at all." These words are not alarmist talk. Tyrant Bear once tasted the horror of Dustless's dojutsu. His strange abilities are almost impossible to guard against. You have seen the tip of the iceberg of Royce South before, or when he fought against you before. The power he showed was limited to the human period. Sanji frowned when he heard this and immediately mocked. "Only limited to the human period? You say that as if he is a god." Hearing this, Tyrant Bear shook his head gently and said, "I'm just making an analogy, but one thing is undeniable. He has not aged for more than 10 years, and his strength is as deep as a black hole. He is indeed a godlike enemy. The passage of time is the natural enemy of any creature. Even a strong man like Whitebeard can't escape the erosion of time. After a long time, his body will gradually age. Dustless, on the other hand, has escaped the devastation of time, and has always maintained the young appearance of 17 or 18 years old, and has not changed for more than 10 years. Don't think it's incredible. I have tasted his peerless talent. Chapter 835. The old-fashioned face loosened and Tyrant Bear sighed without a trace, slightly disappointed. This group of young pirates may be good, but their knowledge is shallow. The end of the ocean is infinite, and there are countless strong people in the New World. There are many admiral-level strong people, and there are even many exaggerated top-level strong people, enough to be on par with the Yonko for emperors. Marine Admiral is just the rank of Royce South's position. It doesn't represent his full strength. No one has seen him fight with all his strength. His strength is still a mystery. Tyrant Bear explained, vaguely filled with sadness. It was fine when he didn't think about it, but after comparing their strength with Dustless, that little sense of hope was instantly gone. He has deep doubts about this. Luffy and Royce South don't look like people of the same level. Bang bang bang. At the same time, the long-awaited Marine Demon Slayer order finally arrived. The sound of cannons resounded through the sky, and even the sky was blasted open. The sky above was covered with rain, and soft sunshine was revealed. After so many years, this is the first time I've experienced the sun, Brook said absent-mindedly. His shadow was taken away from him, and the sun was an unreachable dream for him. The dense sound of cannons engulfed the entire giant ship, setting off a flash of fire. The soil buried deep in the ground was refurbished, and black smoke rose into the clouds. The hell-like three-masted ship was even more dead. Demon Slayer order. It's just SOSO. Tyrant Bear looked calm, and his performance was unusually dull. This kind of intensive bombardment is limited to ordinary humans, and it is harmless to pirates with strength of more than 100 million. Bear's impact. A giant white air shield was squeezed and constantly compressed and expanded. Then the void suddenly trembled and made bursts of whining. A violent shockwave spread and the air shield burst instantly. Ka. The cannonballs that flew within a few hundred meters were impacted by the white air wave and exploded directly before they hit the ground, forming a large vacuum area. Even the low hills in the distance collapsed under the impact. Is this the extent of his strength? So powerful. When Sanji and Zoro saw this scene, their eyes widened. This destructive power was exactly what the Straw Hat Pirates were looking for. In the hands of the Tyrant Bear, it was as simple as eating and drinking. However, even so, this man with unfathomable strength still showed fear and admiration when he talked about Dustless. Unlike the Straw Hats who knew nothing, Tyrant Bear knew that Dustless was an extreme existence. The only people who could be on par with him were the 5 people from the world government. 10 days later, at the Sabaody archipelago. It had been about 10 years since he last came here. Dustless strolled along a small path with an elegant environment. Behind him, Perona floated in the air like a fairy. Both of them held a bounty list and newspapers in their hands. Bang! A dull noise entered his ears. Dustless was slightly stunned and immediately looked up. It turned out that Perona, who was engrossed in reading the newspaper, didn't notice that she hit the treetops. I regret it now. With such a careless maid like you, perhaps I won't even know who did it when I'm assassinated. Wuxia rolled his eyes at Perona and said, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. In all fairness, Perona's fruit ability is good, but people like her don't seem to be suitable for fighting. She is careless. Dustless still remembers that she was scared by Usopp in the original work. Forget it. It doesn't matter if I keep her as a vase. Thinking of his current strength, Dustless's mouth outlined a confident smile, and immediately felt relieved. What is it about? Dustless asked curiously as he stuffed a mouthful of popcorn-like food into his mouth. He was curious about the contents of the newspaper that could attract a witch like Perona. The next stop in the Sabaody archipelago is the Fishman Island, so there are a large group of pirates gathered here. Most of them are unprecedented peak existences, but among the thousands of pirates, only 12 supernovas were elected. Perona explained in a light voice. It was sweet and sounded quite enjoyable. Dustless didn't have time to enjoy the sound of nature. If he remembered correctly, there should be 11 supernovas. His lips squirmed, and when he was about to ask, Perona's voice sounded in advance. Among them, Uchiha Madara, who has a bounty of 500 million berries, is the most eye-catching. Perona looked at the newspaper attentively. Uchiha Madara, who was full of black tubes, had cold eyes and an overbearing and unruly face. She didn't know why she had a ridiculous feeling of déjà vu. 500 million is too little. It's too one-sided and ignorant. In my opinion, it's at least 1 billion. Sengoku is underestimating him too much. Dustless looked at the series of numbers in the newspaper with disdain. A mere 500 million berries is really worthless. Uchiha Madara is far from worth this price. 1 billion? Perona's pretty face turned black, her lips moved, looking at Dustless's face full of contempt as if he had been wronged. She couldn't help but feel entangled and speechless. You know, this character named Uchiha Madara can be said to have refreshed the history of pirates. He wants to debut and has a bounty of 1 billion berries. Do you think he is a god? One of the Yonko 4 emperors has a bounty of 800 million berries. When talking about the Yonko 4 emperors, Perona deliberately stressed the word Yonko 4 emperors. The Yonko 4 emperors are the emperors who dominate the pirates of the world, and there are almost no characters who can tame them. Chapter 836. Looking at Perona faintly, Dustless was indifferent to the Yonko 4 emperors. In her words, his eyes were as calm as water, and it was difficult to stir up a weak ripple. To put it nicely, it was the Yonko 4 emperors who ruled the world. To put it bluntly, it was just a big bullying. The captain of the Straw Hat Pirates and the green-haired man are among the 11 supernovas. Perona's mouth was slightly open with a surprised expression. A few days ago, Dustless and she received the news that the Straw Hat Pirates defeated Gecko Moria. This thing is good. Looking at the popcorn-like particles in his hand, Dustless covered it again and threw it into his mouth. It melted in his mouth, and the sweet taste lingered between his teeth. Little gigolo over there, sit carefully and don't move. Just then, a group of black-clothed men suddenly ran over, and there was a large group of people behind them, rushing in the direction of Dustless and Perona. They won't call us again, will they? Dustless whispered in Perona's ear. This? Hearing this, Perona's beautiful face flashed a strange color, and she immediately turned and looked around. There was no one here, only Dustless and her were left. It should be me and the young master. There is no one else except us. And are we in the wrong place? Perona's eyes were filled with doubts, and she looked as far as possible. There were many people hiding in the dark alleys in the distance, watching the black-clothed men approaching Perona and Dustless, all of them gloating. Could it be? With a stiff look, Perona immediately remembered the most terrifying species living on this island. It was not the ferocious pirates, nor the marines all over the island, but the black and white Tenryubito. Whether it is marines or pirates, they will be silent in front of Tenryubito. Young master, let's leave this place as soon as possible. Pulling Dustless's clothes, Perona whispered with nervousness and fear. Run. The word run doesn't exist in my dictionary. Moreover, these people clearly know each other. Why are they running? Dustless looked at Perona with an idiotic expression. He realized that he recognized the group of black-clothed people who ran over. Even though many years had passed, he still vaguely remembered them. If you know what's good for you, don't move. You've been taken care of, so you don't have to worry about food and drink in the future. As for you, although you're not bad-looking, our master isn't interested in women. You can scram now. The man in black glanced at Perona and waved his men to chase her away. I'm being kept? Dustless's heart, which had been calm for many years, couldn't help but stagnate when he heard this for the first time in his life. His thoughts short-circuited, and his face was full of astonishment as if he was in a dream. Ignorant country bumpkin, you didn't hear wrong. Come with me now, and you won't have to worry about food and drink in the future. The group of black-clothed men shouted impatiently. All of you back off. A cold shout came into his ears, and the group of black-clothed men's nerves reflexively separated. A graceful woman with bubbles and a pretty good appearance entered Dustless's eyes. Shillulia, you're not the one who wants to keep me, are you? The stunning woman who came was Tenryubito Shillulia, and her fat pig brother, Charles Ross, was the protagonist who was once beaten by Luffy. If you're willing to give up the position of Marine Admiral, I really don't mind keeping you. The Roswald family has no problem keeping you. Of course, the premise is that you don't dislike it. Shalilia looked at Dustless's delicate face and said seriously. This was completely from the bottom of her heart. Compared with other Tenryubito of Mariehua, Dustless was perfect in all aspects, and compared with the group of incompetent pigs, he was a perfect lover. It's really a surprise that you can value me so much, but I didn't expect the little girl who was timid to be so bold. Casually glancing at Shalilia, Dustless said indifferently, I'm sorry, I have no interest in your Tenryubito's bad taste. Hearing this, Shalilia looked slightly stiff, and her eyebrows flashed with displeasure. She didn't expect Dustless to not give her face. After she was about to order her men to tie her back, she looked at Dustless's smiling face and put down her raised hand. Her brother was thrown into the garbage dump by Dustless in Mariehu. You're not a Tenryubito. Don't forget, you're also one of us. Shalilia reminded. As a Tenryubito, Dustless's style is not that of a Tenryubito. No. I'm different from you. After raising his finger and shaking it, Dustless immediately stood up and stretched, and said softly, There are differences between Tenryubito, and you will be eliminated sooner or later. Let's go, Perona. Then the master and the servant completely ignored the countless stunned eyes and left everyone with their backs. You are a Tenryubito? Perona trembled and said. The fear in her eyes was clear. Thinking of the horror and perversion of Tenryubito, Perona instinctively distanced herself from Dustless. She thought that after escaping from Gecko Moria, she would be able to enjoy life after becoming a Marine Admiral, but she didn't expect to step into a deeper hell. Yes, I am indeed a Tenryubito. Dustless nodded and admitted frankly. I'm really blind. Perona pursed her lips and wanted to cry but had no tears. She suddenly felt that following Gecko Moria was too happy. The smiling tiger in front of her is the real giant hand covering the sky. Compared to him, Gecko Moria is just an insignificant particle on the beach by the sea. Chapter 837. Carulia Palace. A group of black-clothed men shivered and lowered their heads in shame. The cold sweat on their foreheads almost condensed into raindrops. In the eyes of Tenryubito, human beings are just weeds, worthless. Killing them is just a bad mood for a while. This kind of thing happens from time to time. Get back to me, useless waste. Shalila's bright and jade-like face was distorted, and she loudly reprimanded the black-clothed man who did not do his job well, and immediately left in a huff, leaving the pirates hiding in the dark alley. They all looked like they had seen a ghost. So far, this seems to be the first person who can anger Tenryubito and calmly talk and laugh and leave safely. Hey, am I dazzled? Angering Tenryubito is safe and sound. What is the origin of that little white face? Staring at the disappearing figures of Dustless and Perona, a group of pirates looked at them with disbelief. Dustless met Tenryubito not only did not kneel, but also angered the other party. They thought that blood would be spilled on the spot. Unexpectedly, it was the female Tenryubito who fled. The floating Perona was motionless, no different from a sculpture. It's just a Tenryubito. There's no need to be so surprised. Staring at Perona, who was both frightened and surprised, he could only sigh. This is the impression of Tenryubito in the eyes of normal human beings. How can I not be surprised? Perona, who returned to her senses, said. The Tenryubito who did all kinds of evil was right next to her, and she was calm, not screaming. That's because you didn't ask me, or I will be honest with you. Anyway, it's just a small problem. Dustless was quite casual. To be honest, I never cared about the exaggerated and horrible identity of Tenryubito. I just laughed it off. If you want to live safely in the world, only absolute strength, no matter how scary the identity aura is, there will always be a day when it fails. Dustless said in a light voice. Now most of the Tenryubito are living a decadent life. It seems that they have forgotten the attack on Mariachi by Tiger of the Fishman clan more than 10 years ago. In a chaotic world where ambitious and ruthless people were born, the only one who could rely on was himself. It's easy for you to talk. Do you know how many people envy the celestial dragons? Perona rolled her eyes when she heard this. Those humans who hated the Sky Dragon were actually jealous in disguise. That status was not inferior to that of a god. And it was something that everyone yearned for even in their dreams. You will never understand the feeling of being lonely at the top. Glancing at Perona, Dustless crossed his arms in front of his chest and stared at the chaotic crowd in the distance. He walked over and could hear the screams of fighting and the sound of flesh being cut apart. Are you blind? How dare you offend our captain? Eating your food here is the result of your ancestors burning incense for 18 generations. The ferocious pirate grabbed the young man dressed as a chef. His expression was as ferocious as a ghost. The chef's forehead was stained with blood, and there was an obvious wound the size of a middle finger. The captain he was talking about was a big guy with a scar on the left side of his face. Really, although I'm not interested in catching Marines, but a lazy and helpless voice came, and there was a bright light. However, as a Marine Admiral, even if it's just a temporary idler, you're hurting people in front of me. You don't give me face. Hey, hey, hey. The golden beam was fleeting, leaving only an afterimage in the sky, and immediately rushed straight to the captain with a scar on the left side of his face. Poochie in the position of his heart. A scorched hole suddenly appeared and was easily penetrated, and he could see the people on the other side with a dull expression on their faces. The big guy who was killed in an instant tried to turn his head and looked at Dustless. When he closed his eyes in despair, he recognized the identity of Dustless. Marine Admiral. When did you come? He was unwilling to die. He was inexplicably killed by a Marine Admiral. He felt wronged, especially in the Sabaody archipelago. He had never heard of an admiral's whereabouts. Run, this guy is a Marine Admiral. Damn, why didn't the Admiral even make a move? Why did he appear in the Sabaody archipelago for no reason? Idiot, you don't understand this. This year's supernova is known as the Evil Era in the history of One Piece. In addition to the monster named Uchiha Madara, who has a bounty of 500 million berries, there are 11 other pirates with a bounty of more than 100 million berries. It's normal for the Marine to plan to kill them in the Sabaody archipelago. It's difficult to find them in the second half of the New World. With the appearance of Dustless, the gathered pirates immediately fled desperately, and they could hear each other screaming. The top existence of an admiral is not something they can touch. It's just a face-to-face encounter, and they may be easily killed. A mouse that bullies the weak and fears the strong. Looking at the fleeing pirates, Dustless shook his head and was about to leave when a gunshot fell, followed by a dark bullet whistling. Pirates want to be famous in the world. The fastest way is to defeat famous people. As an admiral, Dustless is naturally the prey of some pirates who want to be famous. Chapter 838. Boom. The bullet penetrated Dustless's head and shot into the distant wall, leaving a hole. The same was true for Dustless's head, but the pierced wound only flashed a golden light and immediately healed perfectly without any damage. With a cold look, Dustless backhanded them back, and the sky was filled with flashes of light. Yasakani no Magatama. The sky was dyed golden, and dense light bullets cut through the void, jumping with the sound of death. The pirates fleeing in front fell to the ground with painful faces, and their bodies were full of burned holes. Their painful expressions were chilling, and combined with the holes all over their bodies, the pirates hiding in the dark were silent. Many pirates who intended to make a name for themselves by attacking Dustless also stopped. Run, the Ghost Admiral is here. The quiet Sabaody archipelago immediately became chaotic. Even though there were dozens of pirates with more than 100 million bounties on the island, as well as more pirates with bounties of tens of millions of berries, their faces changed greatly when they heard that the admiral had landed on the island. As if possessed, he stared at his surroundings with a suspicious expression. Generals were always so elusive. By the time you realized it, you would already be dead. Kid, it's time to withdraw. We are not opponents of the admiral. In the obscure alley, the captain of the Kid Pirates, Kid, was clearly visible. At the moment, his face was gloomy. Looking at Dustless's back and clenching his fists, he seemed to be considering whether to fight. The person who had just advised him was Kid's younger brother, Kira. Retreat? Where are we going to retreat? Kid said in a hoarse voice. In addition to the red line, the second half of the new world is to go to the Fishman Island. Our ship hasn't had time to be coated. How can we go to the Fishman Island? Time is short, and the workers who coated the ship are missing. The only way to retreat is to go back. This? Kira, who was wearing a mask, was silent. They had gone through a lot of hardships to come to the Sabaody archipelago, and they had no reason to retreat. Retreat? There's no need to be so troublesome. This is your end. In the dark alley where one couldn't even see one's own fingers, a dazzling light suddenly flashed. Immediately after, it continuously absorbed the surrounding photons and rapidly expanded, condensing into a thin body. The captain of the Kid Pirates, Eustace Kid, with a bounty of 315 million berries. And your brother Kira, with a bounty of 162 million berries. The photons condensed and compressed into Dustless's face, appearing from head to toe. You can't run now even if you want to. Dustless's appearance immediately attracted the attention of Jida and Kira. The two of them looked at Dustless as if they were facing a great enemy, bean-sized beads of sweat continuously dripping down. Good weapon. Staring at the golden sword in Wu Chen's hand, Jida's eyes flashed with greed. Even if he was hundreds of feet away from the sword, he could still feel a stinging pain on his skin due to its sharp texture. It was a peerless divine weapon that could cut through iron like mud. Idiot! How dare you appear in front of me with such a good weapon? Since you are so sincere in gifting me a weapon, I will accept it. Kid laughed maniacally. His tone was filled with hysterical madness. Come here. He opened his 5 fingers and aimed at Dustless. A special power fluctuation swept out from his palm. It was quite similar to gravity, but there was a difference. The surrounding iron tools floated to Jida's palm. Is this magnetic force? The sky suddenly darkened. Looking up, the void was filled with countless metal weapons piled up together, covering the entire sky without leaving a single gap. Come here. Seeing that the Kusanagi sword in Dustless's hand did not respond and remained unmoved, Jida's magnetic force density was even higher. Even the steel used to build the foundation of the house trembled slightly. So that's how it is. You want the Kusanagi sword in my hand? Idiot. The golden sword in Dustless's hand was a masterpiece of the glint fruit. Only he could use it in the world. The Kusanagi sword is condensed from my fruit's ability. Naturally, there is no magnetic force. You want to take away the Kusanagi sword? I didn't expect your thinking to be so vulgar and ridiculous. I am really worried about your parents. With a contemptuous and unscrupulous smile, Dustless swept out a light and instantly arrived in front of Jida. What a fast speed! Jida's pupils suddenly shrank, and a rare flash of fear appeared in his eyes. Just as he was about to dodge and retreat, a leg full of destructive luster whistled toward him. Light-speed kick. Jida, who was hit by the flash, immediately disappeared. He could only vaguely capture an afterimage. Boom boom boom. A large building 100 meters away collapsed in an instant. Jida's life or death was unknown. The collapse of the building was all thanks to Jida, who was flying backward. You bastard! A sharp cold light fell from the sky, and a cold light swept down from the void, trying to dismember Dustless. Armament hockey hardening. Dustless saw this and didn't move. He just sighed, and his weak little hand was suddenly covered by a dark shadow. Clang! A spark splashed in the dark space and was immediately extinguished. Even so, with this weak light, it was possible to see what had happened. Dustless's right hand easily held the flashing cold tachi. Ka ka ka. With the increase of strength, the tachi began to distort and deform until it finally slowly collapsed and turned into debris on the ground. Regardless of Kira's dull eyes, a flash of light shot out. Boom boom boom. Then there was another huge roar, and Jida's younger brother Kira was also severely injured. He was swallowed by a large flame and smashed to the ground with his body burnt. In a few seconds, the two supernovas were seriously injured, and the surrounding pirates were in panic. Chapter 839. For the pirates at the bottom. The strength of an admiral is always an unsolved mystery. Now that they have witnessed the power of an admiral, they know how terrifying an admiral is. A pirate with a bounty of 300 million berries or a pirate with a bounty of 100 million berries is meaningless. They are all killed in one move. Seriously, where did that Perona run off to? She couldn't have gotten lost, right? Sitting casually on a bare stone, Dustless arranged for Perona to find a marine. And now almost half an hour has passed, but he still didn't see her. Boom boom boom. Just as he was about to use the Den Den Mushi to contact Perona, the large building in front of him suddenly collapsed and turned into ruins. His sharp eyes pierced through the layers of obstacles, and the scene hundreds of meters away was reflected in his eyes. That idiot was beaten again. In the distance, a fat body fell to the ground like a huge meatball, and it took all his strength to barely stand up, revealing his ugly pig-like appearance. Dustless couldn't help but look at Charles, who was beaten like a pig. This guy was beaten before, but he didn't expect that today he couldn't avoid the wheel of history, and in the end he was beaten by Straw Hat Luffy. Ah, you pirates! How dare you kill people in front of me? Do you even put me in your eyes? A large number of photons condensed around Charles, and Dustless's figure slowly emerged. What are the Marines doing? How come it's you? You came at the right time, help me kill them. After the cursing Chalmers recognized Dustless, he hurriedly put on a mocking smile. Just as he was about to run to Dustless to flatter him, a cold voice rang out. Which finger touched me? I will destroy it. Charles, who was silent, hurriedly retracted his finger, and his face was full of joy. His hand almost touched Dustless's clothes. Lewis South, let's talk nicely. We're all family. Charles Ross smiled flatteringly with snot hanging from his nose. He knew the horror of Dustless. Back then, many celestial dragons were tied up by Dustless and thrown into the garbage dump. You guys are quite courageous. You killed 2 Shichibukai, and now you're fighting celestial dragons. TSK. He looked at the Straw Hat Gang with a playful gaze. Not far away, his eyes spread out and took in everything around him. Except for Uchiha Madara, who was secretly controlled by Wuxia, the rest of the supernovas were here. Damned bastard. I'll definitely kill you. The hysterical roar attracted Dustless's attention, and he turned his gaze. The owner of the voice that wished to tear Charles into pieces was actually Manchi D. Luffy. A breeze blew by. Dustless keenly smelled the intense smell of blood in the air. He raised his head and looked. Inside the large water tank, the bright and translucent seawater had turned blood red, and a good-looking merman was floating in the water. So that's how it is. It seems that the bastard Charles shot the merman named Kimi, an idiot who spun a cocoon around himself. The doubts disappeared in an instant. No wonder Luffy's face was ferocious. He, who valued feelings most in his life, watched his friend's blood splatter on the spot. Naturally, his killing intent soared. What are you looking at? I am a world noble celestial dragon. I killed a slave. You all have to die for me. Chalmers hid behind Dustless and shouted when he saw the Straw Hats staring at him ferociously. Even Dustless frowned when he saw that the Straw Hats were glaring at him like wolves. Idiot who doesn't know how to remember. Do you think the identity of a celestial dragon is invincible? You were beaten twice, but you still don't learn. Turning his head to look at Charles, Dustless couldn't help but be speechless. Some pirates are afraid of celestial dragons, and some are stupid, such as Luffy. Not to mention celestial dragons, even if God came, they would still dare to fight. Rubber machine gun. A dense rain of bullets came. Dustless smiled indifferently and used elementalization to avoid Luffy's attack, but Charles behind him was in trouble. Bang bang bang. Dustless, who looked coldly at Charles, chose to stand by and watch. In an instant, Charles was beaten into a bloody mess, dying, and was immediately blown away by the angry Luffy. At the same time, Zoro turned into a shadow and swept in front of Charles, holding his tachi high. Hurry, save me, Royce South. If I die, you will also be in big trouble. Help me kill this group of untouchables, and I will not treat you badly in the future. Charles exhausted all his strength and said to Dustless. Hearing this, Dustless stood still, his face indifferent. Don't kill him. We want to escape from the Sabaody archipelago. We must have this guy as a hostage. The surrounding sea area is blocked by the marine. Gid, who had been seriously injured by Dustless, was dragged by 2 crew members, and his appearance was quite miserable. Yes, you can't kill me, I'm a hostage. If you kill me, Royce South will definitely kill all of you. Otherwise, he won't be able to answer to Sengoku. Charles roared. At this moment, Dustless raised his thumb with a cold expression. He gathered a high-density light beam and aimed it at Chaorose. You're right, Charles. It's too unfair to let a celestial dragon like you be a hostage. So for world peace, you should die peacefully. Chapter 840. Dustless's words not only made Charles sluggish, but also the Straw Hats, including the other supernovas, all looked at him strangely. This cold and murderous look clearly didn't seem to be an act. Mother ***. Did I hear wrongly with my ears stuffed with donkey hair? Marine Admiral wants to kill Tenryubito? This must be a F***king dream. Idiot, can't you see it? They are acting. Once Tenryubito is attacked, Marine Admiral will immediately protect them. The Marine is the most loyal dog of Tenryubito. How can they kill them? A group of pirates whispered a few words to each other. Their attitude towards Dustless was suspicious and contemptuous. How can a Marine Admiral kill Tenryubito? This joke is really tasteless and vulgar. Don't kill me, it's not good for you, everyone is the same. Go to hell. Without waiting for Charles to say more nonsense, the golden beam cut through the void and pierced his throat, instantly ending his life. Immediately, under everyone's surprise, Charles fell to the ground unwillingly. That pair of empty eyes full of disbelief. Next is you. Welcome to the Heavenly Kingdom's direct train. His eyes were cold, and there was a ripple in his eyes, and it immediately expanded rapidly. Dustless's body was the same. The invisible waves contained monstrous majesty, and the pirates within a radius of hundreds of meters were affected. No, this overbearing and unparalleled energy fluctuation is beyond the scope of human cognition. Not only humans, this is too one-sided. All the creatures were affected. Bang bang bang. The invisible energy fluctuation was beyond imagination. Anyone who was affected by it fell to the ground one after another, foaming at the mouth as they fainted. Just a casual blow killed more than 99% of the pirates. Are you kidding me? Is this guy really a Marine Admiral? Looking at it, only the supernovas could support it. The Straw Hat Pirates, except for Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji, the rest of the crew was wiped out. Even so, the 3 of them were still shivering. The energy wave that had brushed past their bodies and had yet to dissipate made them tremble uncontrollably. The surface of their skin was covered with greasy sweat. Not only the 3 main forces of the Straw Hat Pirates, but also the other supernovas. Haoshiku. Haoshiku Haoshiku. Damn, how strong is this bastard? Jida's face was pale. Under such a monstrous aura, he was as small as a lone boat. He could be destroyed by the raging waves at any moment. He couldn't help but feel ashamed of himself. He realized that he was as weak as a grain of sand. She couldn't help but want to submit to the thin man in front of her. Poochie. Jida's eyes flashed with determination as he could no longer withstand the pressure. A cold light flashed through the void. Without hesitation, he pierced his thigh and used the pain to awaken his rationality. He was not the only one. All the other supernovas followed Kid's example and started to harm themselves. They used the pain they had never felt before to try and free themselves from the intense pressure. Jida, his contemptuous eyes fell on Jida, who was struggling at death's door. After glancing at him, Dustless retracted his gaze. You could have stayed where you were and avoided the disaster. But you came here to die. You even wanted to threaten me with that stupid pig, Charles. You think you're smart. But it seems that there is one person missing. Dustless glanced at the supernovas one by one. Suddenly, a familiar figure was missing. Mr. Admiral, are you looking for me? A gust of cold wind came, followed by a slightly hoarse voice. Behind him, a cold light slashed straight at him. The slender Tachi was sharp and unstoppable. Long time no see, Law. However, you seem to have only grown taller. The wisdom in your brain has not increased. The moment the Tachi swept across and was about to cut off Dustless's neck, it was easily stopped. Even if Law gritted his teeth and used all his strength, the Tachi that was close to his neck could not be moved. You only used one finger? Law, whose face was full of hatred, desperately increased the strength of the Tachi, but Dustless was just expressionless. He casually raised his dark thumb and blocked Law's full attack. A moment later, the indifferent face gradually loosened, and the emotionless pupils showed subtle changes. This kind of boring game. How long are you going to play, Law? Is this all you've achieved over the years? I still have great expectations for this reunion. But now it seems that the cruel reality makes me speechless. At the end of his speech, Wu Chen's body was filled with an ominous aura. An explosive power condensed in his body like a volcano that was about to erupt. The surroundings were deathly silent, and filled with an indescribable despair. Deep in the sky, a dense vortex appeared like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water. A majestic and ancient golden light swept out from it. How is this possible? Is this guy a god or a human? What kind of ability is he? The supernovas roared in shock, complaining about the unfairness of fate. Looking up at the sky, countless divine weapons of different structures piled up all over the sky. The golden luster revealed the ancient vicissitudes of life, with an ancient sense of desolation. Kaibao of the king. As Dustless's indifferent voice fell, the number of divine weapons floating in the sky increased several times. Chapter 841. A group of pirates widened their eyes and looked at the divine weapons all over the sky in disbelief. The golden luster dancing in the sky almost blinded their eyes. Buzz, buzz, buzz. All kinds of weapons spinning in the void made a crisp roar, and immediately under everyone's desperate gaze, the divine weapons all over the sky fell to the ground like a rainstorm. The number was more than tens of thousands. Your weapon just now was not made of iron. These guys must have magnetism. Kid laughed wildly, and the majestic magnetic force once again erupted from his palm, covering the entire sky, and all the light in the sky was instantly bound and controlled by him. The weapons that were originally falling and stabbing towards the ground all flew into Kid's hands. This ability is not bad. Seeing this, Dustless couldn't help but gently nod. The fruit that can control magnetic force is indeed good. However, the fruit's ability is not bad, but your ability is far from it. Sad and lamentable. Snap! With a snap of his fingers, the peerless weapons controlled by Kid collapsed and turned into countless light powder, and then gradually collapsed and disappeared without a trace. Forget it, there's no need to make it so exaggerated. Dustless, who was going to pull out the Guili sword, shook his head resolutely. He wanted to clean up these eyesores in front of him, not destroy the Sabaody archipelago, or even the whole world with the Guili sword. Let's start with you, Law. Dazzling light condensed around Law, and Dustless crossed the layers of space and appeared in front of Law in an instant. Seeing this, Law's nervous palm spun rapidly, and a circular transparent space was about to form. Dustless's nightmarish sneer echoed in Law's ears. In front of me? You still want to use the fruit's ability? You're too slow. With a sneer, his gloomy eyes swept towards Law's chest, and his leg, which was surrounded by light, blasted mercilessly. Bang bang bang. Shocked to find that his chest was hit by a fatal blow, Law's face changed in an instant. At the moment of being attacked, his internal organs trembled, and he immediately vomited blood. His body flew out like a cannonball, and the trees up to 100 meters in the distance were broken by the waste. Law's chest had been completely charred and sunken in. Attack together. When the supernovas saw this, they looked at each other and nodded in unison. Since the chance of winning a duel was zero, they could only rely on their numbers to bully the enemy. How boring! In front of absolute strength, numbers are useless. Dustless could not help but shake his head when he saw that this group of people was still unwilling to give up. The difference in strength between them was like heaven and earth. The effect of using a sea of people tactic was next to nothing. So, a sharp cold light splashed out in the void. Immediately after, a huge white slash came whistling over. Its might was incomparably domineering, and it could even slice through space, leaving behind marks that were difficult to erase. What's the use of such a thing? Crude swordsmanship is worlds apart from Hawkeye. Dustless didn't dodge. He just stood there quietly and didn't move. The biting cold slash passed through his body and only tore the ground behind Dustless. As for Dustless himself, he was completely unharmed. You don't even understand hockey. If you want to attack my body, it's just a story that only happens in fairy tales. Now you have no other way but to wait for death. Law can rely on the particularity of surgeon fruit to attack Dustless's body without using hockey, but unfortunately, he has already been KO'd. Since you are so belligerent, then lie on the ground for me first. A gust of wind blew, and Zoro's eyeballs were filled with cold shadows. His fingertips glowed brightly, and with a harsh roar he shot out. Laser! Under Zoro's dull gaze, the flash finally swallowed him completely. It's not that he didn't want to run, but there was no extra time at all. No matter how fast he was, he couldn't be faster than light. Boom boom boom, a large fireball soared into the air, and Zoro, who was hit head-on, was severely injured and was thrown out with black smoke all over his body. Zoro! Green algae head! Sanji and Luffy saw this scene and rushed over. When they were about 5 meters away from Zoro, a golden afterimage swooped down and blocked the two like a wall. Sorry, this road is blocked. Luffy and Sanji, who were furious, looked at each other and rushed over fearlessly, especially Luffy, whose body has swelled into a large balloon and his fists have become bigger than a human being's. As expected of a hothead. Regardless of whether it's good or bad, once he has decided on something, he won't listen to other people's opinions. His body, limbs, and the whole person instantly turned black. Under the sun, the irresistible edge of steel jumped. And even because of the whole body entering armament hockey, Dustless's body changed from the original 7 meters to the current 2 meters. So, bang, bang, bang. A black afterimage swept out of thin air. Because the speed was too fast, Luffy and Sanji only felt a biting cold hurricane in front of them, and immediately spat out blood at the same time. The two of them instantly flew out. They didn't even know who attacked them. Bang bang bang. The same was true for several other supernovas who were stunned. They didn't even have time to react before they were brutally suppressed. The ferocious fist that attacked them was no different from steel. It was almost a punch that made them retreat. The supernovas, who were called the worst era by the world, were like babies in front of Dustless, unable to withstand a single blow. Chapter 842. The 11 supernovas fell to the ground in pain, looking at Dustless with fear and awe. Marine Admiral is so terrifying, then how terrifying is the Yonko for emperors, that the Marines in the second half of the New World are afraid of? Just thinking about the One Piece dream in their hearts is a sign of breaking. Don't be afraid, he is a special existence in the Marine. An admiral can't measure his full strength. Look at it. A real pirate will not be afraid of the enemy and stop chasing his dream. In the depths of the dilapidated auction house, a stooped figure walked out. He had a head full of white hair, wore glasses, and was dressed very casually. His eyes were slightly turbid, and he looked quite sloppy. Moreover, his face was almost no different from a dead tree. Obviously, this person was old. He is at least more than half a century old. It's really a big man. Dustless sighed as he carefully sized up this unattractive old man. Then he recalled his information and deeds in his mind. One Piece's right arm. A legendary man with the title of Pluto. Seabaz Raleigh. Even so, there is a saying that time is unforgiving. Rayleigh, who is more than 50 years old, has passed the golden age of his life. Now he is just a powerful old drunkard. You shouldn't have come out, Rayleigh. After staring at Rayleigh for a long time, Dustless shook his head and sighed. You should have just hid and enjoyed your old age. Why can't you see through the past of the mortal world? Why do you have to come out and intervene? This is self-destruction. Hearing this, Rayleigh just showed a smile. Looking at the supernovas who were crippled and severely injured, his shriveled mouth raised a peaceful and warm smile. These are still young seedlings. They can't be killed by you like this. You mean them? Pointing to the fallen supernovas, Dustless sneered. Can't be killed by me? Do you think you're allowed to help them in such a reckless manner? The final result of pulling up seedlings is just the opposite. Rayleigh looked directly at Dustless's face, his turbid eyes suddenly became cold, and his firm tone left no room for negotiation. This has nothing to do with pulling up seedlings. It's not fair for an admiral to start with a group of newcomers. Fair? This world has never been fair. Dustless sneered and stared coldly at Nether King Rayleigh. It's not fair for them to fight me. In other words, Dustless's tone suddenly changed. His voice was filled with bone-chilling killing intent. Do you think it's only fair that you met me? How dare you put us in the same position? Do you think you're Roger, Raleigh? Rayleigh was just silent. The sword that he hadn't used for many years reappeared in his hand, quietly showing his position. These pirates were the most important seedlings. He couldn't watch the great pirate era end. What a pity! Staring at Rayleigh's weathered face that was filled with the traces of time, Dustless suddenly sighed. Between his words, there was deep regret and a long sigh. A pity? His face wrinkled, and Rayleigh asked in confusion, "What do you mean? You don't even understand this." On his cold cheeks, there was a cold smile. A living legend is about to be destroyed. Don't you think it's a pity? Not only that, this living legend may be reduced to a prisoner and become a member of Impel Down. And this legend who is about to fall is King of Hell Zilyabaz Rayleigh. After that, Dustless shot out with a ray of light, and the golden sword in his hand was compressed in an instant, and it fell from the sky with a heavy blow that could destroy a large mountain. Ka 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 ka. Even if Rayleigh suffered this blow, the ground under his feet collapsed, there were obvious sweat stains on both sides of his forehead, and his hands holding the iron sword were trembling. Compared to the calm and collected Wuxia, there was an essential difference. You all leave here quickly. I will contain him. Regardless of the pressure brought by Dustless, Underworld King Rayleigh shouted at the supernovas. Especially when he looked at the straw hat behind Luffy, his eyes flashed with a regretless smile and determination. The supernovas who were killed in seconds used all their strength to stand up. After bowing to Underworld King Rayleigh, they fled in all directions. The feeling that Dustless gave them was too terrifying. He was an invincible existence. Seeing the backs of several people gradually dissipating, Rayleigh breathed a sigh of relief. Want to run? Don't be naive, it's almost time. Wuxia was calmer than Rayleigh. With a relaxed and calm expression, he sat firmly on the fishing platform and seemed to have a card up his sleeve. I came to the Sabaody archipelago completely incognito. No one in the Marine headquarters knows that the Tenryubito in the Sabaody archipelago was attacked by the Straw Hat Luffy, and the Marine will inevitably send an admiral to encircle and suppress them. I don't need to say, you know what this means? Hearing this, Rayleigh's expression suddenly turned cloudy and heavy like a mountain. In other words, there is still an admiral on the way to the Sabaody archipelago. Do you think that group of kids can escape? So don't be wishful thinking. Among the three admirals, whether it is Akiji, Kizaru, or Akainu, any one of them can easily extinguish the supernovas. Chapter 843. I'm just the type of person who is traveling incognito, and there are other admirals on the way to the Sabaody archipelago, so don't dream that those kids can escape. It's completely wishful thinking. Because of this sentence, Rayleigh was instantly full of flaws, and his whole body was full of loopholes. This light sentence hit him like a heavy mountain. His breathing began to quicken. I must find a time to slip away and help them. Rayleigh quickly made a decision in his heart. His purpose was to help Luffy and others get out of danger, not to have a meaningless battle with Dustless. Just as he was about to retreat, a large amount of light condensed behind Underworld King Rayleigh, blocking his retreat. Get out of my way. Hell King Rayleigh said with a cold expression. He was clearly different from the gentle him from before. His eyes were filled with cold killing intent. Are you angry? But this is also good. How strong will you be when you go all out? It's really exciting. Facing Rayleigh's scolding, Dustless was not angry, but smiled and said, Sorry, I'm a Marine, this road is blocked, and the only feasible way to pass is to step on my body. After saying that, The golden cold light that had always been successful rose from the ground and swept straight toward Nether King Rayleigh's rough face. Staring at the cold light, Rayleigh's expression was cold, and the iron sword in his hand also cut through the sky, splashing a white ripple in the void. Boom, boom, boom. The two swords collided, and the rapid impact spread out, and the surrounding buildings were destroyed. Under this unparalleled absolute impact, all of them turned into a pile of rubble. Clang, 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 the roar of steel continued, and after each collision, a destructive impact was produced. In just dozens of seconds, the two had fought hundreds of times. This guy. It seems that normal means are useless against him, Hell King Rayleigh said while panting. There was a hint of exhaustion in his tone. Although he was still strong now, it was far from his peak state in the past. Whoosh. His strong and powerful arm swung out, and a silver light flew out, and the sharp edge pulled a long trench on the ground, and the direction was dustless. This kind of naive attack doesn't work on me. At the moment when he was about to touch and tear Dustless apart, the Kusanagi sword in his hand shone brightly, and the golden light swept out, passing through the overbearing silver slash. Pucci. At the moment when the completely opposite light collided, it was only a moment of stalemate, and Rayleigh's slash collapsed and immediately burst like a flower. Whoosh! A gust of cold wind brushed past his shoulder, and Nether King Rayleigh suddenly disappeared, turning into a tornado and rushing away. If you want to compete with me in speed, I have never lost to anyone in this aspect. A large number of photons once again blocked in front of Underworld King Rayleigh. Warm rays of light floated and condensed together. Dustless, who was holding the Sky Cluster Cloud Sword, flashed again. Humph! Seeing this, Rayleigh's eyes flashed with killing intent, and his momentum rose rapidly, and even the air around him was blown away. Light speed kick. After flying out of Dustless's foot, he was close to Rayleigh in an instant, and there was no time to dodge. Boom, 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 the ground suddenly shook. A blazing mushroom cloud of flames rose into the sky. Soon after, ferocious cracks appeared and swallowed the surrounding unscathed ground like a disorderly spider web. In this explosion, a figure that shouldn't have appeared, but it swept out. Full-body armament hockey? Looking at Rayleigh, who seemed to be splashed with ink, Dustless nodded secretly, but even so, Rayleigh's arm could still see burn marks. Armament hockey is known as a powerful move that can resist all physical attacks, but invulnerability does not mean invincibility. There is also a premise: once the limit of what one can bear is exceeded, one will also be injured. The same is true for Rayleigh now. Check, Brother Charles, who killed you? Just then, an angry and frightened scream resounded through the sky, attracting the attention of Dustless and Nether King Rayleigh. Looking over, it was Chalmer's sister, Shalilia. Tenryubito? Seeing this, Rayleigh said meaningfully. Hearing this, Dustless glanced at Shalilia indifferently, and immediately retracted his gaze and fell on Rayleigh, who was in armament hockey. Do you want to kidnap her as a hostage to threaten me? Underworld King Rayleigh was silent. Pointing to the fatal wound on Charles, Dustless said indifferently, You seem to be a little old, Rayleigh. The fatal burn wound was obviously caused by a fierce attack such as a beam of light. You killed a Tenryubito? Rayleigh's indifferent face loosened, and he said incredulously, When Dustless killed Charles, he was not present, so he didn't know. Killing a Tenryubito, even a Marine Admiral, will have a disaster. Hearing this, Dustless just sneered with a cold face and said indifferently, You are right, killing a Tenryubito. Even a Marine Admiral can't bear it, but if a Tenryubito killed a Tenryubito, what do you think will happen? Chapter 844. What do you think will happen if Tenryubito kills Tenryubito? This sentence made Rayleigh speechless. His dry lips squirmed. He wanted to refute, but he was surprised to find that he was speechless. The law of this world stipulates that anyone who challenges the authority of Tenryubito will be surrounded and suppressed by Marine Admirals. However, this is only limited to humans. Dustless, as a Tenryubito, is not subject to legal sanctions. It is ineffective against him. Rumble. At this moment, the mini Den Den Mushi in his trouser pocket suddenly rang and stood up. Looking at the lazy Den Den Mushi, Dustless instantly understood who it was. What's the matter, Borsellino? It was Borsellino who contacted Dustless on the phone. Really, if I knew you were in the Sabaody archipelago, I wouldn't have to bother to go there. I heard that the Tenryubito there was beaten. Did you catch the criminal? Borsellino's words were full of curiosity as he dared to beat Tenryubito. Sorry, you are a step late. That guy Charles is dead. Staring at the dead Tenryubito Charles, Dustless said expressionlessly. What dead? The lazy tone was instantly restrained. Kizaru asked as if he had seen a ghost. Fighting a celestial dragon is the kind of person who is not afraid of death. Now killing a celestial dragon is definitely not something a human should do. Have you caught the murderer? Don't let him run away. Otherwise Gorosei Sengoku and Tenryubito will not let us go. Kizaru said gloomily. Run. Why should I run? I am the one who sent Charles to heaven. After that, without waiting for Kizaru to talk nonsense, Dustless closed the den mushi and looked up. He was greeted by a more ferocious chop than before, like a storm sweeping toward him. Katon. Great fire annihilation. After the lightning-like printing, the boundless sea of fire roared out of Dustless's mouth, reaching a shocking range of 100 meters in diameter. The blazing flame instantly annihilated the ferocious chop. Got it. At this moment, there was a ghastly and strange cold wind behind him. Looking up, he saw a black steel monster rushing toward Dustless at a speed beyond human cognition. The iron sword in his hand was different from before. It turned into a deep black color. Old man, you're already so old, yet you can still play so happily. To be honest, you've really impressed me. Perhaps that's what it means to be old but still young. Looking straight ahead, Dustless didn't even turn his head. His body simply spewed out evil golden light, condensing into a huge skeleton to protect Dustless. Clang! The sharp cold light covered with armament haki swept across and cut straight to the mysterious skeleton. Kakaka. Under the full impact, the skeleton Rayleigh saw this scene. Ray showed a happy smile. Since the start of the battle, he had been suppressed by Dustless in all aspects. Even his ability to talk was not as good as Dustless. But after laughing for a while, Underworld King Rayleigh's face suddenly stiffened. Buzzing. Chakra erupted again like a spring, and the skeleton full of cracks healed instantly. Not only that, but it also strangely became a lot bigger. A man in his 60s or 70s can still be so young and energetic. He smashed Konsusanu's defense. Although it is partial, it's still amazing. Good dance, old man. Turning his head, Dustless calmly looked at Dark King Rayleigh. Staring at Rayleigh's sluggish face, his handsome face twisted like a ghost's in an instant. However, you don't know when to stop. You seem to be a little arrogant, old man. The voice containing monstrous killing intent was like a rolling thunder, and it reached Rayleigh's ears, making his thoughts suddenly stop, and his whole person stood in place sluggishly. Are you done? If you're done messing around, then go to sleep obediently. I don't want to see your face again in the future. His pupil rolled sharply, and his left eye rotated at high speed. The dark eye was instantly swallowed by the nine tomo, and it was full of indescribable oppression. The piercing killing intent spread out. Rayleigh retreated like a conditioned reflex, staring at Dustless. At this moment, he was particularly ominous, like a monster from the abyss. His whole body was full of evil. Under the gaze of Rinnegan, Pluto's body trembled uncontrollably. Farewell. Dustless glanced at Rayleigh, his left eye rippled, and several shadows floated around Dustless. After a few seconds of silence, Dustless's eyes suddenly widened several times. The shadows around him also condensed into his appearance, and immediately rushed toward Rayleigh. Tomb of Samsara, border prison. Rayleigh, who was unaware of what happened, was about to launch an attack. His abdomen, back, limbs, all the places that could be attacked were hit at the same time. How can this happen? Rayleigh looked at Dustless in disbelief, then fell to the ground unwillingly and fainted. Even with the defense of armament haki, the invisible attack made him seriously injured, and if he didn't deliberately show mercy, he might have been beaten to a pulp on the spot. Rinnegan once again stirred up a ripple, and the shadow that stayed beside Rayleigh slowly disappeared. Chapter 845. Looking at Rayleigh, who fell to the ground, Dustless was unmoved and passed by him. Slow down. Rayleigh, who fainted, opened his eyes and showed his turbid eyes. In an instant he aged more than 10 years, and his vicissitudes of life gave people a feeling of weakness. Rayleigh was old, and now he was hit by the unexpected tomb of reincarnation, border prison, and it was commendable to continue to have a fresh consciousness. It's over. Don't look for your own death. Turning his head and glancing at Rayleigh, Dustless's back gradually dissipated, evolving from a subtle ink dot to disappearing. Boom! A burst of messy footsteps came from a distance, and groups of people ran as if there was an earthquake. Without exception, all of them were Marine soldiers with guns. It's really over. Looking up at the fierce Marine soldiers, Rayleigh was uncharacteristically calm. Instead of being afraid, there was a feeling of clearing the clouds and seeing the blue sky. After hiding for many years, it was time for this kind of street rat to come to an end. The death of the celestial dragon St. Charles undoubtedly increased the turmoil in the Sabaody archipelago. Not only the pirates, but even ordinary civilians fled. Celestial dragon was killed. This is not over. The thought of the stimulated celestial dragon is unpredictable, and it is normal for him to slaughter the city in anger. At this moment, Kizaru lit a cigarette. Although his expression was as wretched as before, his hands trembled slightly. Even with the cover of reading glasses, the haze in Kizaru's eyes was still visible. Beside him, there was a row of pacifists and Sentomaru. What is even more confusing is that Kizaru also stepped on a pacifist under his feet, and the skin on the surface was cut open, revealing various internal machinery. Kuma, give this old man a reasonable explanation. Lowering his voice, no longer the lazy voice of the past, Kizaru was angry, and he could vaguely hear the meaning of anger. The Shichibukai under his feet was actually the prototype of these pacifists, Bartholomew Kuma. When Marlindo heard that Kizaru was going to land on Marihoya to destroy the supernova, Kuma volunteered to fight and indeed hit the supernova with overwhelming strength. However, the government treats you well, but you used your ability to send those pirates flying. As he said this, Kizaru's old face suddenly changed, and his whole body burst out with a cold chill. Even the cigarette in his hand was extinguished, and a terrible momentum exuded from Kizaru's body. Vaguely, he could hear the wailing and howling of ghosts. Killing the Tenryubito is Dustless's responsibility, and it has nothing to do with Kizaru, but the group of supernovas who ran away can't be separated from him. Although he won't be demoted, a punishment is inevitable. Who would have thought that a traitor like you would take advantage of the loophole in the end? Well, after we go back this time, I'll completely transform you into a humanoid machine. This will be the last time you'll be able to move. Kizaru said emotionlessly like steel. You seem to have a problem here, Borsellino. An indifferent voice came, and Dustless came into view. His eyes expanded rapidly. There were a lot of pirates caught, but most of them were small fries with tens of millions of berries, and the supernovas had evaporated. When Dustless said this, Kizaru's face flashed with embarrassment. The supernovas were sent flying by this guy's ability, and only this group of small fries is left. Kizaru said gloomily as he kicked Bartholomew Kuma. It was one thing for the cooked duck to fly away, but what made him speechless was that the instigator was one of his own people. The vicious hungry wolf can't be fed, and the chance of him working with peace of mind is zero. Dustless had expected this. When Kuma joined the world government to establish the Shichibukai, he was forced to do so. Now it's reasonable to help the supernovas. After all, the more chaotic the world is, the more advantageous it is for the Revolutionary Army. Yeah. It's strange, is this old man's eyes dazzled? Kizaru deliberately wiped his glasses and put them back on. After confirming that he didn't recognize the wrong person, he was surprised and said, I heard that One Piece's right arm, Rayleigh, had appeared in the Sabaody archipelago. I didn't expect it to be true. Not only that, it seems that he has been caught. Kizaru's voice was filled with schadenfreude. Following his line of sight, he saw Rayleigh tied up. His face was filled with loneliness. Under the afterglow of the setting sun, the sun was setting in the west. I didn't expect to meet in such a way, Borsellino. Rayleigh's tone was filled with endless self-mockery. Who would have thought that he would be reduced to a prisoner in the past? Even in his dreams, Rayleigh had never seen him like this. This is what you get for standing up for those little devils. You have to pay the price for everything you do. The rest of your life will be spent in the dark of Impel Down. Dustless said calmly. Things have come to an end, and it's difficult for Rayleigh to turn over. The pirates on the island are almost wiped out. It's time to retreat. The corpses on the island leading to the Fishman Island were piled up like mountains. The pirates on the island were almost wiped out, and they were crushed by the exposed strength of pacifism. Chapter 846. One day later on the sea, the blue battleship sailed to the sea. Dustless and Borsellino stood side by side, looking at the distant sea. In a trance, they seemed to be able to see Marin in the depths of the clouds. In the dark, they can see the marine headquarters that was almost destroyed. Sengoku is going to go all out. The Shichibukai seems to be on standby in Marin. It seems that I have to fulfill the original treaty. Dustless said softly. Kizaru heard this and nodded. His rough hand full of dead skin held a newspaper. The content on it was enough to shake the whole world. The general content is that Fire Fist Ace will be publicly executed in the Marine headquarters in half a month. But this is also good, just to pass the boring time. Lying comfortably on the couch, Dustless's face was lazy. He had an agreement with the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. Once the Marine headquarters was attacked, he had to take action. To be able to personally send Whitebeard to the Western Paradise, Wuxia expressed that he couldn't wish for anything more. You Marines will regret it. Rayleigh, who was chained to the mast, said with a hint of worry in his voice. Once the Whitebeard pirates collapse, the New World, which was once sheltered by Whitebeard, will riot. At that time, the whole world will go berserk and fall into unprecedented chaos. Hearing this, the bored Dustless's mouth squirmed, and he was about to ridicule Rayleigh, but Kizaru attacked ahead of time. Mr. Rayleigh is really compassionate. As a pirate, you are worried about these problems. So what if all of this happens? Kizaru glanced absent-mindedly at Rayleigh, and then said frivolously, Is it because of this that you let Whitebeard go? What a joke. In the end, Kizaru's voice was full of contempt. Glancing at Hell King Rayleigh as if nothing had happened, Wuchen's eyes were more or less full of pity. Whitebeard has been in the sea for a lifetime, and has accumulated countless crimes. Perhaps in the view of the Marine, killing Whitebeard hastily is already a respect for him. Bear. Suddenly standing up from the couch, Dustless walked in front of Tyrant Bear. His deep eyes can penetrate people's inner thoughts. You didn't send Straw Hat Luffy directly to Impel Down, did you? How far we can take him depends entirely on fate, Xiong Xian replied calmly, appearing unusually calm. This kind of nonsense can only fool children. Dustless was too lazy to argue. Immediately, an idea flashed through his mind, and he immediately teased, Straw Hat Luffy is a devil fruit user. What if you throw him into the sea? Then he deserves to drown. He can only blame his short life, Tyrant Bear said indifferently. You're already so old, yet you're still so shallow when it comes to lying. Although the Tyrant Bear looked big and sometimes looked silly, it was actually very meticulous and collected information without batting an eyelid. He would never be so rash. Why don't you let me guess? There was a strange smile on the corner of his mouth. He stared at the Tyrant Bear's eyes with glasses, clear and bright, and instantly saw through his mind. If I didn't guess wrong, it should be Red Hair Shanks, right? The news that the Marine headquarters was about to execute Fire Fist swept the world in less than a day. The calm sea was like a meteorite attack, rolling up monstrous waves, and the whole world fell into a frenzy of public opinion. Whether the Marine headquarters collapsed or the Whitebeard pirates entered the end, these two controversial topics have never stopped, and have become the after-dinner gossip of people all over the world. Somewhere on an island in the New World. Beckman, I told you not to let him find out when you talk about Ace. In the end, sigh. Red-haired Shanks let out a long sigh and rolled his eyes at the innocent Beckman. Now it's impossible to stop Luffy from saving Ace. Although the time he spent with Luffy before was very short, Red Hair Shanks did understand Luffy's temperament, stubborn and one-track-minded. Indeed, as Dustless imagined, Luffy did accidentally fall from the sky and landed on the island where the Red Hair Pirates were temporarily stationed in the New World. I'm going to save Ace. Where is he locked up? Don't stop me, Shanks. Luffy showed the determination to go forward. Sure enough, Red Hair Shanks was helpless. Looking at Luffy, he said with powerlessness, "Although I know it's useless to persuade you, I still want to say, give up, Luffy. That Whitebeard man didn't succeed in breaking the prison before." Although Red Hair Shanks is very optimistic about Luffy, he still can't reach the top. That's not necessarily the case, Shanks. Beckman, the think tank of Red Hair Pirates, said. The Marine headquarters concentrates most of the manpower from all over the world, and other places are certainly not well prepared. Red Hair Shanks nodded. Hesitation appeared on his face, and immediately stared at Luffy's eager eyes. He could only shrug his shoulders and promise to help Luffy once. Fire Fist Ace was Roger's son in the past, and Roger's fight with Red Hair was like a rebirth. Without the experience of Roger's pirates, perhaps Red Hair Shanks is just an ordinary member of the masses. Chapter 847. Luffy, you must be careful when you meet that dangerous man in the future. He is more terrifying than you think. Don't be careless. Just be on guard against his godlike enemy. Luffy's face was full of doubt when he heard that. He always felt that his description of Dustless was too terrifying, as if he was a natural enemy. Luffy, don't be surprised. Some things are far more complicated than you think. Seeing Luffy's suspicious face, Beckman, the second in command of the Akagami Red Hair Pirates, explained that although the size of the Akagami Red Hair Pirates was very small, there were more than a dozen people now. All of this is thanks to Dustless. In the Marine Headquarters Fleet Admiral office, Sengoku's eyes were bloodshot. Since he ordered the public execution of Fire Fist, the world has been in chaos. There are even some places singing the collapse theory of the Marine, and the seas all over the world are in a mess. Is there any news from the Marine Fleet monitoring Whitebeard? Sengoku looked up and asked. Akiji and Akainu were sitting on the sofa, and Garp was at a loss. Fire Fist Ace was about to be executed, and he was very sad. Rumble. The den mushi on the table rang without warning. Sengoku was full of energy, and was about to ask about the Whitebeard pirates, but the opposite side first sent a message that made his face turn green. Fleet Admiral, we are responsible for monitoring the Whitebeard pirates' fleet. They were all wiped out. A scream of horror came from the other side of the den mushi. Without waiting for Sengoku to ask, the den mushi stopped moving. This is just revenge. Soon, a more violent storm will blow to us. Dustless and Kizaru walked into the Fleet Admiral's office, and the person who spoke was Dustless. I heard that you caught Rayleigh? Sengoku's eyes flashed with bright light, and he immediately asked. Hearing this, Dustless nodded. This kind of thing is not worth hiding, and there is no need to. He has been sent to impel down by me. This time, we must catch them all. Sengoku's eyebrows danced, and there was a touch of pride and hostility in his words, which fell into the ears of others, but there was an unusual meaning. Akiji, Kizaru, and Akainu frowned and lowered their heads in silence. Don't tell me you want to execute Rayleigh as well? Wu Chen's sharp eyes are shining, throbbing with a threatening chill. He can see through Sengoku's mind at a glance and affirms. In order to strengthen the power of the Marine, this kind of trivial matter is not impossible. It was just one more person to be executed and 2 more executioners to be found. I think so. Akainu's eyes glowed with fanaticism. He was 100% willing to agree with Sengoku's approach. Together with Fire Fist Ace and Rayleigh. And by the way, destroy Whitebeard, just to solve all the people related to Roger. The symbolic meaning was self-evident. What do you think? Sengoku nodded with satisfaction, and finally his eyes fell on Dustless and asked curiously. Up to you. Anyway, the Whitebeard pirates must collapse this time. This is for justice, to maintain world peace. The righteous Marine will never lose to the evil pirates, and justice will win. Dustless, with a straight face, said impassioned, and there was great righteousness in his words. Sengoku, Akainu, and other admirals were stunned. Garp's face was weird, and the corners of his mouth squirmed. Thinking of Dustless's identity, he shut up. This guy is a Tenryubito, the most evil person in the world, and he shamelessly said that it was for justice. About half an hour later, the small meeting was over. The main issue that came back and forth was the Whitebeard pirates. In the softly lit office, Dustless sat leisurely, and the person who massaged his shoulders was Perona, while the secretary, Califa, stood with a cold expression. Her body was like a javelin, quite professional. Execution together. This is interesting. The vice captain of One Piece and his own son were executed together. This gorgeous drama can attract the attention of the world. And at the same time, it can increase the prestige of Marine, killing two birds with one stone. Guru Guru. The impatient sound of Den Den Mushi came, and Dustless looked at the dark Den Den Mushi on the table doubtfully. The person who contacted him was the Gorosei, 5 elder stars. Those 5 old men never look for me for a good thing. Looking up at the delicate ceiling, Dustless said to himself with certainty, "That's why you are lawless." Glancing at Dustless, Califa said mercilessly. The Den Den Mushi in front of him looked gloomy, as if Dustless owed him a lot of money. Thinking about it, when the Gorosei 5 elder stars looked for Dustless, it was never good. Perona remained silent. Usually she was the most talkative, but now, it was rare for her to be low-key. In fact, Perona couldn't say anything. It's not that she didn't want to talk, but she suddenly realized that she and Dustless were not in the same world, and simple language was difficult to communicate with. As a Marine Admiral, Dustless was in contact with Marine Fleet Admiral, and even Gorosei, 5 elder stars. She couldn't think at all. Chapter 848. Perona cautiously approached Califa and said in a voice as soft as a mosquito, "Do we need to leave? The other party is Gorosei, 5 elder stars. The more you know, the faster you die. This is an immutable truth. Leave." Califa shook her head resolutely and pointed at Dustless. "Do you think he wants us to leave?" She looked up and saw Wu Chen's sloppy expression. Both of his legs were placed on the table casually. He looked like a rich second generation. The person who contacted Dustless with Den Den Mushi was more like a hooligan to some extent. Only when dealing with hooligans would Dustless be so frivolous. Seeing this scene, Perona also knew that she was overthinking. Dustless didn't care, so they didn't need to care. She stood beside Dustless and massaged his back. Looking at the deep black Den Den Mushi with a headache expression, Dustless frowned secretly and vaguely understood the purpose of the call. Isn't it just killing that pig-head Charles? Is there a need to make such a fuss? Calmly picking up the Den Den Mushi, Dustless whispered, as if nothing had happened. "Louis South Saint, please give us a reasonable explanation." On the other side of the Den Den Mushi, the angry voice of Gorosei, 5 elder stars, came over, and even the black Den Den Mushi was replaced by an angry expression. The celestial dragons were killed inhumanely, and the culprit just patted their buttocks and then swaggered away. The Gorosei, 5 elder stars, were furious. "You celestial dragons are also of the same race, at least respect each other." Explanation? What kind of explanation do you need? Looking at the Den Den Mushi with a casual expression, Dustless's answer was also perfunctory. "I, a celestial dragon, need to explain to you? Are you all mistaken?" This ordinary sentence made the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, look stiff and speechless. The status of celestial dragons is higher than the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, and they are so straightforward that they are suspected of offending their superiors. However, although the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, is not as high as the celestial dragons, this is also an undeniable fact, but it is too direct and too hurtful. Even so, there is no need to kill Charles. The Gorosei, 5 elder stars. On the other side of the Den Den Mushi, a good celestial dragon was killed, without a reasonable explanation. It is difficult to suppress this matter. There are countless eyes in the whole world are watching this matter. There must be an explanation. Although the 5 elder stars, Unfortunately, the law of this world does not allow them to do so. Do you still want to pursue it? Or are you going to arrest me as a celestial dragon and execute me? 5 elder stars to 5 elder 5, 2 SSS with 5 fives. Hearing this, the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, of Mariehua, countless crows crossed their heads. Punish the celestial dragons. Even if they have this idea, they dare not do it. Of course not. The Gorosei, 5 elder stars, quickly denied it. After Dustless's, they no longer have the heart to blame. Instead of tangling with this, it is better to discuss how to settle the matter at hand. The celestial dragons have been killed, and the whole world is in a mess, waiting for them to explain. The celestial dragon Charles is dead. This is an indisputable fact. It is useless to blame Dustless, even if he is the culprit. There is no law in the world to punish the celestial dragons. But we have to give the world an explanation. We can't announce the identity of Lewis South. On the other side of the black Den Mushy, it is obviously changed to someone else. And the voice is more powerful than the previous Gorosei, 5 elder stars. Dustless is actually quite familiar with the owner of this voice, and the bald Gorosei, 5 elder stars, with a sword suddenly appeared in his mind. It was Dustless who robbed his first-generation ghost blade with a plan. Give others an explanation? That's your business. I have other things to do, so I won't accompany you. When his voice fell, Dustless hung up the black Den Mushy, too lazy to talk nonsense with the 5 old guys. A group of old foxes who only know how to play tricks is useless. Charles Ross had been completely dead. Although he was a celestial dragon, he was not worth mentioning in the end. About a dozen years ago, Dustless also killed a celestial dragon, but at that time he was still carefree. There is also a level gap between the celestial dragons. You really know how to cause trouble. Perona, who was responsible for massaging the shoulders behind him, couldn't help but be speechless. Her beautiful eyes kept rolling as if she had already seen the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, vomiting blood. How difficult and uncomfortable it is to live with such a lawless master. In fact, as Perona thought, the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, of Mariehua are indeed very entangled. Dustless can't be beaten or caught. And there is nothing they can do even if they know that he is a prisoner. If they want to punish Dustless, they are still too far away. After careful consideration, the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, can only repeat the same trick, and very decisively choose to throw the blame on others, such as the supernovas who attacked the celestial dragons in the Sabaody archipelago that day. They are all good scapegoats, which is the only strategy the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, can think of to protect Dustless. So what if I cause trouble? Anyway, someone will always take the blame for me. I don't know which unlucky guy is targeted by the Gorosei, 5 elder stars. Looking down at the marine headquarters that was being repaired, Dustless muttered to himself. Chapter 849. A few more days slipped away quietly, and as Dustless imagined, the unlucky guy came out. At this moment, Fleet Admiral Sengoku's office was filled with a strong smell of gunpowder. Looking around, the whole office was oppressive and almost suffocating. Although there were only a few people, everyone looked cautious. Boom! A tall body walked in front of Sengoku, and a strong palm slammed on the table, causing visible cracks to appear, and the surrounding documents were blown all over the floor. Sengoku's goat that was raised to eat intelligence suddenly had a good meal. There was no doubt that in the Marine Headquarters Fleet Admiral's office, besides Sengoku himself, there was only one person who dared to slap the table. This is not fair. Holding the latest newspaper in his hand angrily, Garp yelled. Luffy didn't kill a celestial dragon, why did they put such a big hat on his head? This time, Dustless took the blame for Manchi D. Luffy. There's nothing we can do about it. With a sigh, Sengoku found that he was quite sorry for his old comrade. Not only could he not help him, but he also framed Sun Zebo. This is what Mariehua and the others want. Sengoku made the final decision and pushed all the responsibility to the Gorosei, 5 elder stars. This was all done by them, and the Marine didn't even have the qualification to intervene. Aren't there other pirates? Let them take the blame. Garp said unwillingly. Once the crime of killing a celestial dragon is confirmed, Luffy won't have a chance to clear his name in the future, and he will become the public enemy of the world. Isn't there someone called Uchiha Madara? Give him the responsibility. Puff. Dustless, who was drinking tea, felt his lungs churn. The tea that entered his stomach spurted out uncontrollably. What do you think is inappropriate? Dissatisfied eyes swept over, and when he looked up he saw Garp's face was black, and his words were full of unkindness. He couldn't help but feel aggrieved for Luffy. The incident in Eni's lobby was already bad enough, but this time, the killing of a celestial dragon fell on Luffy's head. Just thinking about it made Garp angry. In fact, I think it's quite appropriate to let Madara take the blame. Dustless smiled and said somewhat insincerely, if he put the blame for this incident on Madara, then it wouldn't be called a scapegoat. Sengoku's expression stiffened, and he immediately took out a document with a wry smile and handed it to Garp, saying, in fact, the scapegoat character I found was Uchiha Madara. Unfortunately, when I handed it to the Gorosei, they rejected it in one breath. His tone was extremely bleak, and it carried a trace of melancholy and loneliness. There is no doubt that Uchiha Madara is more suitable than anyone else to be the scapegoat. He is powerful and lawless. He dares to openly confront an admiral of the Marine. So Luffy is far more suitable to be the scapegoat. Cowardly, not like a righteous Marine at all. After pondering for a moment, Garp tore the document to shreds in anger and humiliation. His tone was filled with boundless killing intent. Sengoku looked at the scene in front of him in silence, and a sense of powerlessness arose in his heart. Why push the blame to Luffy? It's entirely because he's too weak. Even if he's unwilling and intends to resist, Luffy can't do anything substantial. Therefore, this inexplicable blame all fell on Luffy's head. He can only blame himself for not having the right to speak, and can only go with the flow. This service is really considerate. Looking at the document torn by the furious Garp, Dustless understood the meaning of the Gorosei. Compared to the mysterious Uchiha Madara, Luffy is indeed more suitable to be the scapegoat. One is a powerful and lawless monster, and the other is a weak ant. It's reasonable for the government and the Marine to finally choose to push the blame to Luffy. According to Dustless's guess, the Gorosei are afraid that the Marine will suffer fierce retaliation if they push the blame to Uchiha Madara. At this time, the Marine is about to go to war with the Whitebeard pirates. If they offend Uchiha Madara and get attacked by him, there will definitely be a disaster. After all, Uchiha Madara defeated two admirals, Kizaru and Akiji. In the end, Luffy was abandoned by the Marine and the government, and became Dustless's scapegoat. Don't be sad, Garp. Sengoku softly comforted. Garp can't afford to lose. Whether in terms of strength or stability, Garp will play a decisive role in this battle. Don't forget, that kid hit a celestial dragon. Although Celestial Dragon was killed by Dustless, Straw Hat Luffy did hit Celestial Dragon. Even if Dustless didn't kill Charles, he would still be killed by Luffy. The reason is that Luffy's friend was shot by Charles, which aroused Luffy's anger. It's only a matter of time before he kills the Celestial Dragon. After a long silence, Garp finally nodded absent-mindedly and sat back on the sofa. This is the case in this world. The law of the jungle, the strong are respected, not to mention the fact that Luffy hit a Celestial Dragon. Chapter 850. After a long silence, Garp finally nodded absent-mindedly and sat back on the sofa again. The world is like this, paying attention to the law of the jungle, and the strong are respected, not to mention the fact that Luffy killed a Tenryubito. Even if Dustless didn't kill Charles, according to Luffy's temperament, he would definitely kill Charles even if he was enraged. Now it was merely Dustless who killed someone, and the scapegoat was replaced by Luffy. Rumble rumble. A rush of Den Den Mushi broke the dull atmosphere. Sengoku was stunned and immediately picked up the Den Den Mushi. Fleet Admiral. The New World was once related to the Whitebeard pirates, and all of them have disappeared without a trace. Hearing this, Sengoku's mouth twitched, and his face showed a touch of fatigue. During this period, his hair was a lot white, and his whole body was bent, and he was obviously a lot older. Recently, the Whitebeard pirates have made big moves one after another, and Sengoku's head was broken. He wanted to stop it, but he couldn't. Because at this moment, 9 out of 10 of the world's forces are concentrated in the Marine headquarters, and the New World is completely empty. He wants to stop it, but he doesn't have that ability at all. Monitor them immediately and report to me every move, Sengoku calmly ordered, although it was just a pretense. No matter when, as a Marine Fleet Admiral, he must remain calm enough. Even if Mount Tai collapses in front of him, he must not be seen through by the enemy. Come to think of it, where's the man with black beard? Wu Chen suddenly asked with a light in his eyes. Akiji and others frowned when they heard this, and they began to think about Blackbeard's whereabouts, but they were surprised to find that the old guy seemed to disappear out of thin air. Bastard, at such an urgent moment, where did that ambitious man go? Sengoku, who instinctively realized that something was wrong, roared. At such a tense moment, Blackbeard disappeared inexplicably, and Sengoku couldn't calm down. A character comparable to an admiral disappeared, and it was difficult for Sengoku to calm down. What about his accomplices? Thinking of several crew members of Blackbeard Titch, Sengoku raised his voice. If these people are still in Marin, it means that Blackbeard has no signs of rebellion. If they disappear collectively like Blackbeard, it means self-evident what it means. I'm afraid he's long gone. Dustless suddenly opened his mouth and said, "When I came here just now, I saw a warship suddenly leave." Sengoku's face changed dramatically. A few days ago, he ordered that except for the family members on the island, everyone should leave Marin strictly. It was self-evident who escaped by boat. Do you want to send someone to chase after him? Leaving Blackbeard alone will definitely cause a big problem. Akainu frowned and asked hoarsely, revealing a strong murderous aura. There's no need. Let him be. Dustless interrupted. People like Blackbeard are sincere in causing destruction. It's useless for us to stop them. It's better to let nature take its course. Don't forget that the current enemy is Whitebeard. Sengoku gently nodded. Even if he wanted to chase Blackbeard, he was powerless because the Marine didn't know Blackbeard's movements at all. Akainu, Kizaru, and Akiji stay in the Marine headquarters. Royce South is responsible for going to Impel Down to extract the Fire Fist. When he comes, he will be executed immediately, Sengoku said to Dustless. Of course, there is also the One Piece King's right arm, Rayleigh. This time he will be executed together with him, Sengoku said. Dustless nodded slowly. The significance of executing Rayleigh is far greater than imprisoning him. It can play the role of knocking the mountain to scare the tiger. But I don't know if it will go as smoothly as you think. Glancing at Sengoku, Dustless left the Fleet Admiral's office directly. Everything can't go as smoothly as Sengoku thought. Rayleigh is not an idiot, and Dustless will not obediently accept the punishment. All in all, this is an unprecedented fierce battle. Of course, the target of the fierce battle is only limited to the Marine. Dustless is detached from the world, and will not be affected. On the blue sea, the large giant warship moved forward quickly, cutting through the thorns and brambles, riding the wind and waves. And their destination is Impel Down. Blackbeard may be in Impel Down. Looking at the void in front of him, he saw Blackbeard's arrogant and unscrupulous figure. Blackbeard took the risk to go deep into Impel Down alone, nothing more than to find the so-called companions. It is undeniable that the prisoners at the bottom of Impel Down are indeed unimaginably strong, and it is normal for Blackbeard to find them as companions. At this time, in another direction, a big red ship is also sailing at full speed, and its destination is also Impel Down, but its flag is obviously different from the Marine flag. It is a unique pirate flag. Looking closely, it is the Akagami Red Hair. Pirates. Under Luffy's strong desire, Akagami Red Hair can only help this kid with all his strength. Although the hope is slim and even negligible, he chooses to follow his conscience and instincts. Fortunately, all the Akagami Red Hair pirates support him. At the same time, the Marine battleship seized by Blackbeard also rushed to Impel Down. And because of the early arrival, all of them have landed in Impel Down. a place full of evil. The same is true for Shanks and Dustless. As time goes by, they are close to Impel Down. Chapter 851. On the distant sea, a huge battleship was galloping. It was full of Marines. Everyone's expression was almost the same. They all showed great panic, and their legs were soft. Hey, 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 hey. His signature cold smile was unbridled, completely unbridled and arrogant. A man with an open belly and a chest full of hair suddenly stood out. He looked ferocious and ugly like a pig. He had a grin on his face, and from time to time there was a burst of disgusting breath. He gave people the feeling that he was a beast in human clothes. Staring at the group of Marines, his eyes flashed with cunning and cruel eyes. "Captain Titch, you are too naughty," Lafitte, one of Blackbeard's crew, teased. Blackbeard looked ferocious and intimidated the group of Marines. Seeing their silent appearance, Blackbeard grinned. "You didn't forget what I just told you otherwise." A cruel killing intent flashed in the corner of Blackbeard's eyes. He raised his right hand, which instantly turned dark black. A majestic and dense gravitational force shot out from his palm. The air flowing in the void was swallowed by this dark hand. The other side of him was like the abyss of the universe. "Ah, let me go!" A captured Marine screamed. His internal organs were being sucked by the dark hand. His body gradually shriveled and turned from a living person into a yellow skeleton. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. Captain's devil fruit ability has greatly increased. In the future, he will replace Whitebeard and become the Pirate King. Even surpassing the Pirate King is just around the corner. Seeing that Blackbeard raised his hand to destroy the Marines, Bagaz, who was in charge of the helm, began to flatter Blackbeard. His flattering expression was more respectful than seeing his father. A while ago, Blackbeard's control of the dark fruit was far from reaching such a level of proficiency. Now that he was using it so skillfully, it was obvious that Blackbeard had strengthened his training during this period of time, which was why he could improve so quickly. At the same time, more and more abilities condensed in his body. During this period of time, he had devoured more than 100 devil fruit ability users, and he had taken their ability from them. With pressure comes motivation. This is all thanks to those two men, Blackbeard said with a smile of exultation. Although he knew that this was flattery, it was very effective on him. He had always been the one sucking up to others. Now that he was suddenly being sucked up to, Blackbeard felt exceptionally happy. His 10 fingers were adorned with rings made of gold, and inlaid with all kinds of gorgeous gems. They shone especially brightly under the sunlight. Not only that, Blackbeard's face was rustic and uncouth, as if he was a villain who had achieved success. "Hurry up and ram the ship into Impel Down, or else you will end up like him." Blackbeard threatened the remaining Marine soldiers. His whole body was covered in darkness, like a grim reaper in black. His strange, dark hands were far more exciting than a sharp sickle. These ordinary Marines almost had a mental breakdown. Under the threat of death, they chose to help Blackbeard. They directly controlled the battleship to break through the defense of Impel Down, and directly hit the inland. Boom, boom, boom. The huge battleship was like a meteorite falling from the sky. The ground of Impel Down splashed a lot of dust. In the hazy dust, several figures of different shapes jumped off the ship. "Hey, hey, hey, hey." Looking at the entrance of Impel Down in front of him, Blackbeard's face flashed a cold arc and immediately stepped in with his head held high. Bang, bang, bang. The jailers and Marines who came from all around were hit hard by the overwhelming strength. Hundreds of Marines who came to support were killed by the Blackbeard pirates in the blink of an eye. Am I too late? After an hour, Dustless came. Impel Down was like a purgatory on Earth. Corpses were everywhere. This miserable scene made Dustless frown. There shouldn't be. Dustless's secretary Khalifa looked around. The harbor was full, and almost all the battleships were there. Obviously, Blackbeard had not left Impel Down. In a trance, they could still hear the cruel screams of fear. Hey, 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 hey. In the dark prison, there was a burst of arrogant laughter, followed by an arrogant voice that fell into everyone's ears. Looking up, the iron prison in the deepest part of Impel Down had been opened by Blackbeard with brute force. Countless ferocious criminals were rushing to escape from the cage. I'll give you half an hour to fight. The one who survives in the end will be my companion. We will become the Pirate King together and conquer. Conquer? Conquer what? Don't dream about it, Titch. An extremely uncoordinated voice interrupted Blackbeard. He looked up and saw Fire Fist Ace glaring at him. His entire body was shrouded in an extremely oppressive aura of flames. Fire Fist Ace and Blackbeard have a blood feud. Ace, with your current identity as a stray dog, you still want to challenge me? Blackbeard said disdainfully with a sneer on the corner of his mouth. I haven't seen you for a while. Your arrogance is no less than before, Blackbeard. A dazzling flash of light suddenly appeared. A large number of photons came from all directions and condensed into Dustless's figure. He can't, but there's me. Chapter 852. There are only two people that Blackbeard hates the most in his life. One is Whitebeard, who almost killed him. It can be said that the hatred between them is as deep as the sea. He can't wait to tear Whitebeard into pieces. The other is the young man in front of him, the youngest admiral of the Marine. Why are you here? You should be in the Marine headquarters fighting against the Whitebeard pirates. In the end, Blackbeard almost roared out. The fear and threat that Dustless gave him was no less than that of Whitebeard. It wasn't only Blackbeard who looked gloomy. Most of the pirates who witnessed Dustless recognized the legendary admiral. During this period, many pirates were caught by Dustless and sent to impel down. For Dustless, they are unforgettable. Of course, it's all unforgettable hatred. Everyone, let's kill this Marine admiral together. Otherwise we won't be able to go out. We will all be killed by him in this ghost place. We will be cruelly suppressed again and be slaughtered. Lafitte's mouth swept with a sly smile as he shouted. His powerful and advantageous tone was bewitching, swallowing and wearing away their inner reason. Apparently, he intended to use the power of this group of pirates to destroy Dustless together. These people had already gone crazy from being locked up. They couldn't wait to get out. Anyone who went against them would receive a fatal beating from them. Kill him. The eyes of all the pirates turned scarlet, and they were filled with terrible hostility. A group of fools. Have you been blinded by the fanatical mentality of freedom? Fool, challenging me is not a step to freedom, but a step into the door of the underworld. His whole body swept with a more bright high-density light, and his hands condensed a golden sword. The invincible edge made people not dare to look directly at it. The burning light seemed to be blinding. When he was about to personally destroy this group of rioting pirates, two unexpected figures came out like arrows. Bang, bang, bang. The oncoming pirates were instantly kicked away by the combined forces of the two. It was extremely simple and easy. Hancock and Khalifa? That's surprising. A soft smile appeared on his indifferent face. Dustless understood that Hancock helped him, but he didn't understand why Khalifa suddenly interfered. After all, he killed all the CP9 members except Khalifa, and it stands to reason that he should hate him. You're wrong. I just don't want these people to kill you. Khalifa pushed up her glasses. Her beautiful, gem-like eyes were as dazzling as the stars. You are my prey. I don't want you to die in the hands of these people. Not bad. An even more unexpected petite figure came into view. Looking up, it was Perona. Seeing this scene, Dustless couldn't help but feel dumbfounded. He didn't expect his head to be so valuable. Not only did the enemy want it, but his own people were no exception. Hey, you bastard, you're quite popular with women. Blackbeard stared at Hancock and the other two beauties with a gloomy face. He had lived for a long time, and he could naturally see the meaning of the three women. His sour tone was somewhat jealous. In most of his life, no woman had ever looked at Blackbeard. That's for sure. Hearing this, Dustless turned his head and looked at Blackbeard contemptuously. He showed a mocking smile and said sarcastically, "Compared with a fat pig like you, I'm very popular with women." Boom, boom, boom. At the same time, Hancock, Khalifa, and Perona launched a fierce attack. Especially Hancock, under her weak body hid a destructive power. Compared to an admiral, she was even more powerful. Although Khalifa and Perona were not as good as Hancock, they were not careless when they attacked. Every time they used their ability, they would take away a large number of people. You two, where do you want to go? In the dark corridor, Dustless's figure suddenly disappeared and turned into thousands of photons, flashing bright light, and the entire dark bottom of Impel Down was as bright as day. Dustless pointed at the two people who were planning to sneak away. It was Rayleigh and Fire Fist Ace. I have made a military order to the warring states. How can I bear the two of you running away so carelessly? Photons floated, and Dustless blocked Fire Fist Ace and Rayleigh in an instant. His cold face was full of indifference, and he held the Kusanagi sword in his hand to block their way. You two are the main characters in the script of this war. I can't let you just walk away like that. Fire Fist Ace and Rayleigh heard this and looked at each other. They could see the determination in each other's eyes. They looked at Dustless and were full of fighting spirit. Obviously, they would not wait for death. Ace and Mr. Rayleigh, you two leave first. His target is you two. I will hold him back for a while. When his voice fell, a lightning-like hurricane swept toward them. Because of the speed, even his appearance could not be seen clearly. Hero of the Sijimbi, you want to hold me back with your half-baked skills? I really don't know where your confidence comes from. You are really ignorant. You can't touch my body in your life. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.